But so what did you mean by that? Free content is failing because the audience is no longer in control. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Off the Record. Man, do we love Off the Record, and boy, do I have a news story for you. I got a friend down in Texas, got himself a new car, and on the way home, boy, did he have a little bit of a problem, folks. Had a biggin. He called me, I set him up with Off the Record, and boy, was he excited when he texted me back this morning. Just this morning, and he goes, I cannot believe it. I got pulled over doing a number that was, woo! It was a big one, and Off the Record got it dismissed. Fully dismissed, not even just reduced. Off the Record is the best. They are a service that connects you with a qualified attorney in the jurisdiction where you got that moving violation. Could be a big one, could be a small one. Doesn't matter. Don't plead guilty. Get Off the Record. Go to offtherecord.com/TST or use code TSTPOD on the Off the Record app. Again, go to offtherecord.com/TST or download that Off the Record app for iOS and Android and use code TSTPOD. That will get you 10% off any legal services booked through Off the Record. I've used them a whole bunch in my career. I tell my friends, I tell my family, I tell you people, and when you use them and they come through for you, you guys tell me back. It helps me do these promos, so I like it both ways. So offtherecord.com/TST or code TSTPOD on that Off the Record app. Have it in your pocket, ready to go. If you get pulled over, you're using them confidently and you're not pleading guilty. All right. On this episode of the podcast, by popular request, Hoonigan, creative director, former anyway, and all-around content genius, Brian Scotto, is in studio. He's got new podcasts he's talking about. He's got new videos he's talking about. He was, of course, one of the founders of Hoonigan, and so he has lots of stories. We're talking about Volkswagens. We're talking about Audis. We're talking about RWB, controversy, and this one is the longest podcast we have ever done, beating the Johnny Lieberman record from just a little bit ago. So let's get straight into it. Without further ado, Brian Scotto is on the Smoking Tire Podcast. Let's go.
It's like, you got to prepare. It's like boxers not having sex before a fight. You got to just, like, me and him can't even talk
right
for like a month leading up. So
it'll just
material.
Especially if you want to go 4 hours or whatever.
Like, it must, like, do you see Lieberman more often? Is he, like, in your group of people?
Yeah, I see him around.
So is it hard to do a podcast with him because you already talk about a lot all the time? Or is there enough?
That's a person where there's always, same with me, there's always something going on that can drive conversation.
Okay.
And he does, like, study stuff. He's not always, I don't always agree with his conclusions, but he does research things a lot and talk to, like, engineers and things like that.
Before you hit the button, do we want to open packages now?
The button has been
pushed.
Oh, we're already
Doesn't
rolling.
matter. But yeah, we just started rolling, but you can open the package.
The snacks. I mean, are we really in for some kind of a marathon? Because you have 4 Red Bulls in front of you.
Well, we started. I
brought some for you guys. It wasn't just for me.
Yeah,
it wasn't just for me.
These are the craft services. This is the devil.
It's the king.
It's the king snack. Peanut butter pretzel filled nuggets are the fucking devil. I swear.
I prefer them in the plastic case because then when you're done, you can put nuts and bolts in them. I have like 90 of those in my garage, but this is king.
I'll tell you what. I've gained and lost. If I did a chart of gain and loss weight over my life,
you look good right now. So you've lost weight.
You know what it is? It's the vest. Turns out I'm a
Is that what it is? You're a vest
guy? Oh. Turns out it hides the good parts, hides the bad parts, and accentuates the good parts.
Oh, okay.
But of all the weight, I've probably gained and lost 250 pounds over the course of my life, up and down.
Okay.
Right? Probably a third of it
is from that.
It's from fucking craft service peanut butter pretzel nuggets.
They're a good
Them shits are the devil.
They're so simple. I just introduced my son to him the other day, and he breaks the pretzel off and just eats the peanut butter inside. And I'm like, you're like missing the point.
Yeah, you just get peanut butter.
Dude,
He's like, I just want the sweet part. He's not into the savory part. He just wants the sweet.
You know, if he had a TikTok account, people would be like, Cobby would be like, what the fuck?
Does he love Easter? Because you can get the eggs, you just open it, and there's candy inside. He seems like he likes the extraction process.
Cadbury cream egg? Does he just like scoop it out with a spoon?
Yeah, well, we don't give him much candy, so when he gets it, it's like full addict.
Yeah.
It's just uncontrollable.
Be careful.
He'll take like a bag of candy and run into another room and lock the door, and I have to like sit there and like pick the door
ridiculous.
to get in. Yeah.
Be careful with that strategy because I ended up. My mom didn't really keep anything bad for you in the house, and I was allowed to have desserts once in a while.
Right.
But then a neighbor moved next to me, and he was in my class, and we became friends. And his house,
he had the double stuff. He had the everything.
Name it. They were the first house that I'd ever seen to have like a beverage truck drop off. They had a weekly delivery. Snapples, Arizonas, everything. And then it was like on the route that they did a convenience store.
Wow.
Like the same truck that would go to the deli by our high school would bring.
My childhood friend, he was one of four, right? So it was four brothers.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, they just started shopping for everything at like the beer distributor.
Yeah.
And this is like pre-Costco.
Before
before Sam and all that. And it was like he would go to the beer distributor and they would just come home with like racks of like off-brand soda.
Yeah.
We would just crush them as a kid.
Oh my God, the weird soda brand.
What was the brand in New York that was like it was like White Stone or like White something? It was a soda brand.
Oh, I don't know.
And they had like black cherry. They had like all the
Dr.
classic.
Brown's is the legendary one. Dr. Brown's is like if you have old Jewish relatives, they will crush Dr. Brown.
But that's like I think that's a step above.
It's more mainstream.
This came like in a can.
So
and it was like White Rose or White, I forget, it was something like that.
Not New York Seltzer, right?
No, New York Seltzer's fancy stuff.
Yeah.
This was like, they sold in Wallbounds, right? Like if you remember Wallbounds, this was the type of, the rack of soda that you would get. White Rock? I think it's White Rock soda.
Maybe I don't
something
know that.
like that.
I'm from
Richie
Richland.
You lived north
in
of the
Greenwich,
boroughs.
We had
north of the
boroughs.
White Rock.
White Rock's a thing.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
when I went to college, I mean, you want to talk about fucking generic brand beer. I go deep.
Where'd you go?
I went to Penn, but I was in a fraternity, so we go with the Dakota, Dakota and Dakota Light. Of course, you have the Beast.
The Beast is a classic.
You have the Beast. You have Natty.
Of course.
You have Schlitz. You have, I mean, all of them. Dakota was by far the cheapest beer I've ever bought, ever. A 30 rack was $4.
What was the one that was just called
30? This was in 2002, but nevertheless, it was a 30 rack of Bud Light was probably, $28.
Key Light was like 33 cents a beer.
This was like a quarter of the price of Bud Light.
That's unsafe.
It was crazy.
There was one beer at that point that was just called like something ice. It wasn't even like a brand name. It was
Natty
just like
Ice?
Natty
It was
Ice.
Natty Ice, of course, but this was just like beer ice.
Just
Like they weren't even trying. Like there was no logo design. They were just like they just printed it. It was like Times New Roman beer ice. You're like, okay, I'll drink that.
I do like an ice. Oh, shit! I just looked up at the screen.
White Rock.
Now
There
I
you
remember
go.
the logos. Yeah. You know
The
where
White
we
Rock
had that?
Ginger Ale was a good time.
The White Rock Ginger Ale was good, and the tonic water was all right too. That was back before we had fancy tonic water.
Oh,
James May just sent. Do you like gin? Do you drink gin? Are you sober now?
Yeah, but I mean, I never was a gin guy to begin with.
James
I
May
was
just
a
sent us the
bourbon
biggest
guy.
goddamn case of gin. So if you'd like to take a bottle home, you
How
can.
was he, by the way?
Exactly the James May you want in your fucking studio.
Yeah,
Did not disappoint.
I bet.
100%. Great
I
radio.
got to work with him on set for Top Gear.
Oh, really?
And he was like my favorite.
What were you doing there?
We did with Ken. They wanted him to roll a Reliant Robin.
Oh, yeah.
Robin's Reliant? Robin, yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
three-wheel thing.
Yeah.
And we went out there, and it was kind of a crazy day because, for me, those guys were like meeting my idols,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so much of what they did inspired 0 to 60 and then later inspired what we did with Hoonigan, and getting to hang out with them, but they were just being normal people but also still being them.
Yeah.
They
they're
were
themselves on camera. It's the same people. Yeah,
100%, which you don't get often.
Yeah.
They were those people, but getting to kind of spend that time. But then I spent 3 hours sitting in a transit van with the Stig. And
with Ben?
Yeah, with Ben, and he had his helmet on the whole time. I did, and at the time, the Stig was still, this is like 2000, maybe like 12 or something. Like the confidentiality of the Stig's still pretty big.
Yeah.
So like he's talking to me, but he's got the helmet and the visor down the whole time, and we're just sitting like in a transit van together, just chatting about life. And then, it's like,
what
all right.
Weird vibe.
Yeah, and it was like really weird because he never was like, hi, I'm Ben.
It's like talking to a superhero.
It was like basically like just sitting there having lunch with Superman. And I was sitting there like chatting him up, and we're talking, and then at the end of the night, I get an email from him. And it's from Ben Collins. And it just says,
nice meeting
and it just says, nice meeting you today. And it was like finding out that like, Santa Claus didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like I almost wanted. Like I loved that he stayed in character.
He didn't even have
all
like
day.
a Stig@topgear.com email address. Like
only to break it at the end of the day. Like
That's so
you
funny.
did it all day long. Like we were cosplaying the whole day together, buddy. And then like you called the safety word. There was no reason to.
He went visor down all day.
Didn't even lift it.
Just to ruin it with an email at the end of the day.
Fucking write you from I am the Stig at Gmail.
How did he not create the Stig at Gmail?
No, it was like Ben at BenCollinsRacing.com. It was like the most British email ever.
Yeah.
Did we talk about it last time you were here? I've had this conversation with somebody about celebrities that have easily guessable email addresses.
Or like your net worth is $100 million. Please get rid of your AOL.com email. Right? Like Brad Pitt at AOL.com is not acceptable.
That's how you determine like when someone got really rich. Because if you earned $100 million in '98, the world's coming to me.
Yeah, exactly. And someone else deals with like you actually only get like 4 emails a day because no one else is allowed direct contact with you.
I told you what my dad did for a very long time, right? My dad would have his assistant print out all of his emails and divide them into 3 piles. Today, this week, and like eventually.
That's amazing.
And he would handwrite responses and give them back to her. And she would then type them and send
Does he have really good handwriting?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Right.
It's not like that, like Carl we know who writes like the
fast, but
Constitution.
clear.
But yeah, you could read his writing. Yeah. But it's a boss move. He also used to turn off his cell phone when he wasn't actively making a call. This was like in the late 90s, early StarTAC era. He'd make a call and then turn the phone off and put it away.
My phone number is the same phone number I had from my first digital StarTAC.
Dude, mine
I
too.
remember like it was probably because as a kid I didn't grow up with a ton of money or anything. So for me, having a digital StarTAC in 1998 was like the first baller thing I ever had. Like I remember you'd pop it and people would look and be like, oh.
You'd snap it like extra tight when you'd close it.
And it was the black one because the gray one was the old analog StarTAC. You don't want to be on that poor man train. The digital StarTAC was important. But by the way, don't call me until after 9.
Yeah. I'm a little younger than you, so my first phone was the Nokia.
Yeah, I mean that's the classic.
Which is the classic,
the brick,
indestructible
the best phone
Nokia.
ever made.
But I did have the SkyTel before that.
Okay.
Did you ever have a pager?
No, I had a pager, but I didn't have the service.
Yeah.
I just had a fashion pager where you could spell asshole upside down, but I didn't have the one where you could actually send messages. But my uncle did.
Yeah.
Which was the coolest thing ever. It was like to send someone a message.
You'd have to call the receptionist and tell them your message.
Which was always fun to like to call them to say something inappropriate.
Yeah, when you're in high
that's
school, that's
hilarious.
like all you do.
Yeah, because there's just some nice lady on the other side, and she's like, "Thanks for calling Sky Pager. Like, what is your message?" And you're like, "Suck my nuts from the back."
Oh my God. I never did that.
And she's like, "Is that NUTZ?" Yes.
Those people must have the best stories. That's incredible.
Yeah, the SkyTel receptionists, they were all right.
Yeah.
And then everyone got the Nextel.
Yeah.
Did you have the Nextel?
Of course. I had the Nextel BlackBerry.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like business with a side of hood.
That's the mullet.
Yeah. Because like I'd be in meetings. This is like early ride 0 to 60 days. So I'd be like in real serious meetings, and my like shithead friends would chirp me the most inappropriate shit.
Pass that blunt.
Yeah. I wish it was that good. It was usually something
the
that would,
Nextel BlackBerry.
Yeah, that's the one right there that says in stock on eBay, second over from the top. That's the one I had.
What does one of them
that
cost today? And what would you do with it? The fuck would you do? I mean, $39. Would you melting it down and getting the copper out of it?
I miss the chirp though.
I did love.
Like it was a good feature. Like you don't have time to call someone, especially for driving. Like if you're all rolling together as a crew, it's like a walkie in your pocket, which is kind of nice.
Yes.
I just did this, road and track event. We do the guided tours, and
How was that?
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Everyone had a great time, and it was. It was beautiful weather, and man, did I hammer the shit out of the Bentley GT Speed on the track. That car slides so good. It was great
Amazing.
fun. But we use radios, and it's like it's a game changer when it comes to driving in groups.
Oh, yeah. It's the best.
Motorcycle people all know this, of course.
Yeah. No, it's the best. It like changes everything. And then you always forget to bring them with you.
Yeah.
Because I'd always be like going somewhere, or I'd be the guy who brings them, like with like my group, like Vinny and Ron or whatever. We'd be going somewhere, and I'm like handing out the walkies, and they're like, "Okay, Dad."
Yeah.
And then sure enough, like they don't turn them on, and everyone misses the exit. I'm like, could have just had the walkie on. We could have just done this.
Oh, we always did tons of chatter on the road trips. Like it was almost like so much that eventually you just turn it off for like half an hour to kind of get a break.
Oh man, when we would, they in road and track, I lead the big group when we're driving it, and I make the route, and so I'm mostly doing directions and like. There's a mattress in the road, like move right, stuff like that. But our old editor, Mike Guy, did you know Mike?
I might, yeah.
So
Mike used to live out the block from me.
He's great. And he used to be Hunter Thompson's assistant, and he's got like stories coming out of his ass, But he would get on the radio and tell these like winding ass stories like he's doing a podcast, and I'm trying to be all like turn right in a mile, and I can't boot him off the radio morally and technically I cannot, but I'm trying to be like, yo, there's like a spike strip in the road. And he's just like not getting off the radio. So
amazing. The walkies are the best for that type of stuff. But yeah, anyway, I missed, what I saw the other day, speaking of old technology, and I saw this, and I think that's like, I'm starting to realize I'm getting old because like I have like a nostalgia for a particular era of tech. Like I'm not anti-tech, but like it's like tech's gone too far.
Yeah.
I saw like second or third gen iPod that had been converted for Bluetooth.
Oh. Ooh. That's pretty cool.
I was like, I kind of like that, like to go to the gym or to go for a walk and not bring my phone,
have it be your
but still be able to use my AirPods, which like I live with.
Do you use Do Not Disturb on your phone?
I do, but
imperfect.
I don't. It's not that I'm worried about people disturbing me. It's that I have zero self-control.
Exactly what you mean.
Where it's like I look at my phone and I'm like, oh, I wonder if anyone texted me.
100%.
I wonder if there's this on Instagram.
Yeah,
so
like an actual, just a regular ass iPod might be a good thing to have.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was just.
It was $300. I was
wow.
like, I don't know if I want that
much. Speaking of like old technology, I was just at John Ward from Icon did his Icons of Design thing this past weekend, which is basically it's his charity event that also celebrates things that are made in Los Angeles. It's all about handmade things in LA. Everything was beautiful because, of course, it's John Ward. Everything was insanely expensive. Yeah. I almost bought like a pocket knife. There was a pocket knife company there. I picked it up and it was $1,400. I was like, maybe not.
Everything is artisanal. Yeah.
Mad artisanal. Yeah. So I made a donation to the charity, but there was a guy there selling like vintage shit, just a bunch of, stuff. And he had set up almost like an apartment. There was a couple of couches and a coffee table and like a motorcycle and like a, whatever. It's all for sale. And he goes, I got something to show you, and takes me to the back of his car. And he opens it up and he goes, I went to the Clint Eastwood estate sale. And I'm like, and I'd actually read about this. There was a Clint Eastwood. He's not dead.
Which is I was about to say, I was like, did I miss this?
No. So it's not, he didn't die. He sold his first house in L.A.
Can I just stop this for a second?
Yeah.
If you're not dead, you're just having a garage sale.
Yeah, right. True.
You just went to the Clint Eastwood garage sale.
But no, but
estate sounds nice.
No, but here's what happened. He sold his first house in L.A. to his friend. His friend, who was like possibly mildly obsessed with him, kept the house exactly the same.
Oh, weird.
Didn't take the art off the walls. Didn't take shit out of the closets. He was like, "Here's the keys. Fucking see ya." And so this guy died. And so it's basically it is an estate sale, not for Clint Eastwood, but it's all Clint Eastwood.
It's his stalker
shit from like the 80s.
That's cool.
So what I was talking about is this guy fucking goes to his truck and he goes, look, it's Clint Eastwood's cable box. He's got Clint Eastwood's
It's not like the gun from Dirty Harry. It's like, look, it's his Tocom receiver.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. here's his like TV remote from like 1984.
I would tell him to prove it. I'm like, prove it.
Well,
prove
yeah,
that's Clint Eastwood's toiletry kit.
Yeah. And then he had like a bunch of VHSs and like other shit.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was wild. But he had that TV remote that was on the long wire, and it almost looked like a keyboard. Remember that shit? Early 80s. Yeah, it was old school. Anyway, here we
Jonathan's great, by the way. The thing I always loved about him was in like early sort of Hoonigan content days. Like he was really keen on doing stuff with us, and he's so the polar opposite of our, of what our design aesthetic was and what our style was. But he's
the anti-dirt bag.
Yeah, but he loved it. Like he loved us.
Yeah.
He loved all of that, and it was like and our audience loved him too, which was really interesting because I remember we brought him on. I'm like, man, is anyone really going to care about this? Whatever, and people did. Like people just like, there's something about him.
He's a very good storyteller.
He's a good storyteller, and I think that you enjoy people who care that much about anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like if someone came in here and told you the history of pretzel nuggets, right? But they fucking cared. You'd be like, man, I didn't realize that there's different ratios of peanut butter, and that makes sense why the Costco ones don't taste as good. I have
listened to deep podcasts on incredibly minor details of life and history.
That's my favorite thing is like the weird deep dive that people will do. And you're like, oh yeah, this rabbit hole is, I don't know why you would do it, but whatever, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Did you guys have him on for Build Biology or something like that?
Yeah, we had him on for Build Bio. I forget with which vehicle. Maybe it was one of the Broncos or one of the icon trucks he did early on. I forget what it was.
You guys showcased so many cars that were, incredibly unique, incredibly like not ornate, but like complicated at times. But I think it showed like, hey, one person, like that crazy Firebird super wide fender cage thing, like this person cared this much about this vehicle and took it further than anybody. And I think John obviously does that. He just does it over and over again with the Broncos.
Yeah, and like the whole concept of that show was like, the first show we did with Daily Transmission, like the best way to explain it is just, it was like Jay Leno's Garage for shitheads. It was like, bring your car on, instead of showing me how the steam engine works, like crash it into a fence. Right? And that worked really well for us. But then we started to realize that like some of these cars that were coming on were so good that they needed a better story, and they didn't just need to be like burnouts. And we were also losing people who didn't want to come on, because in the early days of the show, someone come on, they do a little burnout. I remember you wouldn't do a burnout, right? I think, or did you?
No, I did a burnout. What would I not do? There was something.
Whatever it was, but
there was something someone asked me to do, and I was like, absolutely not.
But in the early days, it was acceptable to just come on and do a 15-second smoke the tires, everyone cheers. By episode 300,
I did that.
Our level of kink was so high that it was involving toilet stuff. Like it was really next level, and like it wasn't going to just be normal. And it got to the point where people who were building these really, really cool cars didn't want to come on the show. So we started that show to kind of talk to that audience. And it was one of the most interesting things like that I look at now, and I geek out on this, is that show early on our audience hated. Because they're like, where are the burnouts? Like the vocal audience. But if you go back and look, that show has way more views than the other show did.
Well, yeah,
because it had like a longer, tail.
Yeah, and it went beyond the subscribers and whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised if that show shows up in people's like algorithms
still
later.
To this day, because it's still just like cool car build, easy, very like formulaic to watch, simple show. So yeah. So anyway, I don't know what's new, guys.
That's how you texted me the other day when I said save it for the show. I'm going to put up the text. I'm going to get the text out right here. Yeah. It says, because I was like, you'd asked me about Patreon. And of course, we love our Patreon, patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast. You can watch the show live. You can ask questions. You get ad free. You get extra podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. And let's see. I said Patreon might be all that's left after the rest of it goes to hell. And you said free content is failing because the audience is no longer in control. The free part was too tasty for them to realize what they were swallowing, which I think that second sentence is bigger than just content. But so what did you mean by that? Free content is failing because the audience is no longer in control. Guys, we got to take one quick break for Delete Me. I have been using Delete Me for a couple of months now, and I gotta say the number of robocalls and spam has gone down noticeably, particularly the robocalls, and that was my biggest concern. Right? Because we put so much of our information out there online, right? We're shopping for stuff. We're filling out forms. We're buying airplane tickets. We're getting tickets to stuff. We're doing e-commerce. It's Amazon. It's everything. But your data is a huge profit center for all these companies. You can't control whether you're a target. You can't control whether your data is getting sold through data brokers until now you can protect yourself with Delete Me. I signed up for Delete Me, and it was super easy. I filled out their survey. I filled out all this personal information from my address and phone numbers and email to my previous ones of those, my employment. They asked me all these questions about my history, and then Delete Me goes to work, not just right away, but on an ongoing basis. And they find all this stuff at these data broker websites, and then you get rid of it. You just a couple clicks, and it's just gone. It could be stuff that's related to you and your job, or your house, or your utilities, or whatever. You want that stuff gone. And so Delete Me will do it, and then they'll send you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. And it's not just a one-time service. It's always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information that you don't want on the internet. Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. So we got a special deal for you. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/tire and then use promo code TIRE at checkout. That's 20% off. Go to joindeleteme.com/tire and then enter code TIRE at checkout. One more time. That's joindeleteme.com/tire and then use code TIRE. Thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring today's episode. And now back to the program.
So, look, my career started in the magazine world,
Yeah.
right? And I remember being an American magazine and being envious of the British mags, right? The reason the British books were better was because newsstand was still like 75% of where they were making their money.
Really?
Yeah, and it has to do with, one, they didn't have to print as many because they have a small, like the amount of money it costs to move magazines across America is really expensive, right? It's not the same issue in the UK, right? To be able to get out there. So they were still seeing a larger percentage on sort of the newsstand than the advertiser side. The US also just had more ads, right? I mean, the advertising in the US, especially in the automotive space, is one of the biggest, right? It's why every single ad agency in the world needs a car. Like if you don't have an automaker, and you learn this if you watch Mad Men, if you don't have an automaker, you're not an ad agency. And it's like because of how much advertising there is in the automotive space. So, but still, there was like this 50-50, right? Like I would get into fights with my publisher because, Cadillac wanted this or GM wanted us to do more of this or they wanted this car on the cover in order to do a 2-page spread. And I'd be like, we're not going to sell as many issues. And like selling the issues was still the thing that had to happen to do the other part, right? And there was still enough money coming in from selling the issues that the audience had a say. And the audience got that say in a very different way back then because it's not like they had comments. It's not like they had as much interaction. But they had that say by just
sold
not
this
buying
many
it.
issues and this one didn't.
Not buying it. Nowadays, the algorithm has so much of that say that the audience is actually not having that say. So you could put out a piece of content that if your audience actually saw, they would love.
Yeah.
But
Which we have done.
because it doesn't
over and over.
but because it doesn't check some algorithmic box, they don't get to see it, right? So like for me, and I don't know how long you want to go. I could probably go 3 hours on this alone, but like, catch up, right? I left Hoonigan over a year ago, right? I left Hoonigan last really September. I didn't announce it till November, but I left and I went worked in a different industry for an entire year. Completely different space, but still in media, right? Just not automotive, but in the world of animation. And kind of got to like take a step back and you start to see like the same problems are here that there were in the automotive industry. And you start to realize, like, okay, there's just a problem generally of what's going on with content. And, and also get to sit back and kind of watch everything that happened. And we can kind of get into that at some point. I mean, it sounds like Motor Trend's done too, as of yesterday.
They cancel
$41 billion in debt for the parent company, right? Which is going to trickle down to them and all that. And by the way, fact check me on all this because it's just I learned this from Instagram.
All
this morning.
I saw this morning was Roadkill canceled, which is a bad canary in that coal mine.
I mean, canary. That is their coal mine.
That's true. The coal mine has collapsed.
Yeah. So but like, why did all that happen? And for me, I can't help but go back and say, this model of the internet, and you were in the early phase of it, right? Because you were at Drive.
Early medium, yeah.
Right.
And we'd made videos, me and JF, for 3 years before Drive.
But you realize, like, you guys were the cautionary tale.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were all sitting there in the print.
Don't work for Amel.
We were sitting there in the print world going, this is interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see what those guys are doing. And then you guys started crushing, right? You had all the different shows. Everything was doing really well. Chris Harris. I mean, there was like it was this thing that, like, man, YouTube is a potential place to be, right? You guys really, I think, set that standard. And then you did a paywall. And the paywall was a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Because the paywall was this cautionary tale of, if you do this, the audience won't follow, but instead someone will fill your void instantly.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at the success of Hoonigan, partially is the paywall for Motor Trend.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we were doing our thing. Motor Trend was doing their thing. But Motor Trend all of a sudden went behind a paywall, and we picked up a ton of their audience. And I know we did because all of a sudden our audience skewed more like American Car V8 than they were previously, right? Before it was 2Js and things like that. And all of a sudden they wanted to see more of the American cars. That stuff was doing better. And it was because we filled that void. And then, that kept happening. And I think at first, the promise, right? Like, I've three ways to think about this, but I think at first, the promise to media companies, whether it was Drive or it wasn't really our goal in the beginning, but it became our goal, whether it was Hoonigan or Motor Trend or Donut or whoever else, I think the promise was like, you're going to build this massive audience and then you're going to sell a tech multiplier.
Yeah.
Right? But no one really knew how they were going to make money.
Yeah.
Right? And I think everyone just thought, we'll figure it out, like you do with all new emerging technology. And what happened through that period was everyone tried a different thing. So for me, I think there's three ways to make money in the content business, maybe four. The first one is to depend on the platform. Just the platform, right? If you depend on the platform, it's very dangerous. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand. One is that what it was paying 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago is greatly reduced.
Yeah.
Two, they can tweak the algorithm a little bit, and all of a sudden you make no money that month. Also, different months pay differently, right?
Yeah.
End of the year, December is a great time, but putting content out in January through March is really slow. So it's hard to build a career and say, like,
the platform favors new creators to get them hooked on creating,
100%.
And they know if you're an old creator, how much they can pay you right before you quit.
Yeah. And on top of all of that, you're now building algorithmic content.
Yeah.
So you're now like clickbaiting, like you're worrying more about your thumbnails and your actual content because honestly, once someone clicks in, as long as they watch for 30 seconds, you get the view. That's all that really matters. And, you're looking at the math of this and it really justifies the type of content that people don't want people to make.
Yeah.
Right? It's the content that people hate.
Yeah.
And it also means that
shit that makes you mad, shit that like causes drama or whatever.
Of course, because negativity, we are, as humans, we love negativity bias, right? I just read this book. I don't want to get too heady on this, but I just read this book called Stolen Focus, and it's all about like how the algorithms weren't intended to be bad, but humans are bad.
Oh, this sounds like the kind of thing that would make me really mad. I'll put it on my reading list.
Right in your alley.
The whole position of it is this idea that, like, if you're driving down the block, and on the left-hand side is a little boy giving his mom flowers, right, which is a sweet moment, and on the right side is a little boy who got hit by a car, you're going to look on the right side, right? You just are. And the reason is because our brains are wired to negativity because negativity is danger, and danger could prevent you from surviving.
Right.
So you're more likely to focus on things that are negative. So like that's all of a sudden becomes like what most of the internet became.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and we don't have to get into what that became for our entire society, downfall of everything, and the reason why America hates America is all because of the way that that's sort of built.
Yeah, because if you tweak all the levers for engagement above everything else, and you don't care about anything but that engagement, you're going to end up with a bunch of fucked up people and fucked up motivators.
Right.
For all kinds of stuff.
So think about what that does to the content world, right? So now there's a certain type of content that does well, right? And like we saw this, like you get something where like if you blow your engine up or your car catches fire, that episode's going to do better.
Yeah.
People are more likely to click on it. It might not be the best content, but it's just going to do better. So that's one side, right? Is like you just service the algorithm, right? And you just do that. And look, there's still a business there, and there's still ways to do that work. But I think it's become more and more difficult, and I think that the platform itself,
it's unstable.
It's highly unstable.
You're successful today, but
and you are at their whim.
Yeah,
right. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when Facebook like completely changed.
Oh,
it was like January of 2016.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons we launched YouTube was because we were crushing on Facebook. Our Facebook content was hitting massive numbers, and then all of a sudden one day they were like,
our Facebook growth instantly stopped. Yeah, and never continued to.
It completely shifted, and we just gave up and then went to YouTube.
Yeah,
and that's really difficult when if you're a single creator, that's dangerous. But you're nimble, you can do whatever. But you have 40 employees. Yeah. It's really difficult to forecast that kind of stuff, especially when you have like 40 employees who are like have 401ks and healthcare and all these things to sit there and go, how do we do all this? And then the second piece of it is the advertising side, the ad integration. And like I don't think you have to explain too much there. The minute that someone else is paying for your content, like you're not in control. Right, so it's like, and to what point? It depends on who your partners are. I'm sure you guys work with great partners. They don't care what we say on here. You've never told me you can't say this.
No,
today,
and we make it pretty clear, and it's probably to our own financial detriment.
Of course,
but like. We don't want to do a show that is we call it the Noah's Arcade a lot. We won't have like advertisers on the show like like I think we did it once. We had one person on the show one time that had advertised with us.
Dealership tech stuff. Or sorry, dealership data.
Oh, the Salesforce person. Maybe that was it.
We didn't have them on, but we had content was sponsored by them.
Yeah. We had one sponsored segment once. Yeah.
And look, I think that sometimes can work out really well. Like we worked with partners at Hoonigan and with Ken that were great partners, and they gave us money to go do awesome stuff, right?
It's not mutually good or bad. Fenske just did a really good one with Continental. It was a new car on old tires versus an old car on new tires. Okay, so the point comes across, even though Continental paid for it. Like they're Continentals, it's on. Like, all right, it's still a decent thing to.
But like, I think one thing, especially for the content that Hoonigan was making, was like we definitely had to start to kind of like clean up our act a little bit because it got to that point where, well, for two things. One.
Mr. Scotto, this is just too dirtbaggy.
It's a little too dirtbaggy. It's a little too dangerous. We don't want to be attached to that. One of the things.
This engine explosion is brought to you by Motul.
The funny thing about it was like the fan base forever used to be like, why didn't you guys keep making Daily Transmission? We could never sell a single partner to that show. No one wanted it. No one wanted it. It was the most popular show we had in the beginning. Nobody wanted that show.
That's so funny.
And, it's like there's reasons, obviously, why was like that no one wanted that. And it was difficult because you'd be like, this show does really well. And they're like, but, and it's like, all right, like I get that. And, so it becomes one of those things where, like, we self-funded that as the company, and then at a certain point that can't go any longer, right? So anyway, I think the next part of it then is, like, the merch route, right? And the merch route only works to a certain point because all of a sudden you then have a company that you never intended
and shipping.
You never intended to be a manufacturer or a producer of whatever wares. And now all of a sudden that business actually gets bigger than your content business.
You guys had the biggest merch business of all.
But we started as a company that was apparel. Yeah. So we were sort of built for that. But there was a period of time where the people who were working on the apparel side, there was more of them than there were like on the content side because like we were making so much of it. And like so that becomes this thing where you're like, and even then it didn't cover the costs. It was just
crazy.
It was just supplementing the cost, right?
That's crazy.
So we went at it from like a three-headed way of like we didn't really care about the YouTube numbers; they weren't big enough to matter, right? But we took that piece and then we took the advertising route and then the merch kind of supplemented that. But the other part that we took was like we weren't taking money out of the company. right? We were paying ourselves, at least like Ken and I were paying ourselves low salaries, below market salaries, and we weren't taking money out of the company with the idea that like eventually it sells and you make your money there, right? And then when you do that, the future of the brand is like you don't know where that's going to go, right? And also you were running the company so nimble and so lean that you have companies come in there like, it can always be more lean. You're like, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. And I think that this is this unfortunate model because we haven't asked the consumer to pay for content in years, right? Like, they might pay for it on Netflix. They may pay for it for some of those places. But like, I think in the direct relationship of like, I make content, you should buy it, has gone away. And it's a really sensitive conversation. Like I even just realized having this conversation, people can be like, oh, fuck him, he wants to charge for content. It's like, no, I want to make the content that you want to see.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like I want to make the content I want to make.
Yeah.
And I want to make the content you want to see. And that is unfortunately every year harder to sustain than it was 10 years ago.
Sure.
And I think that's really like where I think Patreon's interesting. Like I launched, I literally hit you, asked you a few questions, and I launched my Patreon afterwards. And I've just been using it as like, hey, if you want to see what I'm doing with my new thing, like come watch. I still realize that like content has to live outside the paywall.
Yeah, you can't have all of it.
It can't all live there.
Yeah, you can't.
But
have
I
all
can put things there that I know won't do well.
Sure.
On regular platforms that people want to watch.
And the fact that they exist at all there is something extra for those people who are.
Yeah, and I like making content for the people who really want it. You know, like I think like, you know, as we grew at Hoonigan, you know, you start to like not make content for the core audience anymore because you're thinking like, how do we get over 1 million views? How do we get over 2 million views? Or in the Gymkhana sense, how do you get over 50 million views, right? And then it's like you have to start thinking this broader and broader and broader and broader way. And like there's a fun challenge to that, but I really enjoyed making content that I knew only 100,000 people would watch because like it was very focused at those 100,000 people. And 100,000 is still like a big number. Like I do realize that, but in the way that our numbers were back then, that was a smaller video. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's not just us. Like, there's actually a great there's this podcast that I love called it used to be called Reply All, and now it's called Search Engine.
They relaunched. They relaunched. Oh, good. I missed that show.
And they had Ezra Klein come in, and he basically explained like the downfall of news media because the platforms were never built for anyone to make money but them, and that they just don't sustain companies operating on the platforms because it's in where it's all gone. And you know, and they talk about things like Substack and you know Patreon, similar stuff for the print world, and it's really interesting. Kind of listening to that because he's talking about the news world, but if you just replace the word news with automotive media, you're like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what's happening to our space right now, where either the content is so focused on a click that it's not really the content you want, or it's so advertiser heavy that it's either neutered because it has to be, or it's maybe leaning a little bit too positive for something
corporate,
corporate kind of feeling. Yeah. Where I think that and I'm not saying everything's going to be on Patreon. Like I don't think the model will ever go back to paid content. But it's very interesting that we live in a world where like it's not only the paywall isn't just like I don't feel like paying for it. It's like you put up a paywall. How dare you make money for a living?
That was me in 2013.
Oh, I bet.
And it was. Me and Harris, everything about the paywall, even though we didn't choose it, was our fault.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're the face. Yeah. And so it's like you get the credit.
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about the camera guys or the editors. It was like, great job, Farrah, Harris.
But you also take the blame.
And going to making those one-take videos, really low budget and high volume was my response to, you don't think film crews should earn a living. Yeah. Well, here we're going to get rid of them and show you how this works out.
Like,
Turns out it worked out well, but only if you can crank out, 4 videos a week, 5 videos a week, which is a lot.
I just think we've created a creative world right now where burnout is really high. Right,
it's inevitable.
Like your likelihood of making a living in this space as a new coming creator to it, not working for a company that can protect you and can give you these things when there are downtimes, seems to be about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. And then there seems to be a ceiling that you hit. And there's a few guys who blow right past it. And there's people who've done very well at this, right? Like obviously Cletus. But Cletus has a whole pay side of what he's doing.
Well, he has a whole other
he's
thing.
got the pay-per-view and he's got the event side of it that works. And, obviously Adam LZ and Weston Champlin, like a lot of these guys have broken through. But for every one of them, there's hundreds of other people who have just kind of hit a wall where at first it seemed like it was doing well. And then it's like the old drug trope of like the first hit is free. Yeah. It's like that first couple videos you put up do really well.
When YouTube is one thing they're doing is favoring those new creators.
Of course.
So they'll get, because I don't know about you, but like I'm like a quote victim of this as well.
Yeah.
Not as a creator, but as a viewer. I don't really pay attention to any subscriptions anymore.
No, right.
But you know what I do is I go to youtube.com on my browser and I just see what's there. And so I, as a viewer, am so susceptible to, now I also literally old school go to the search bar and I have like 5 channels that I like and I actively check what they've made. But so much of it is just what's fed to me. And they have total black box control.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's this channel's first video or their fucking 500th or 5,000th.
And like, look, I will obviously am all supporting of like the ability for new creators to get access, because otherwise you end up creating a world where you don't get back in again.
Sure.
Right? Like I get that. But I think that it's sort of a churn. Right? Like bring the new ones in, get rid of the old ones, bring the new ones in, get rid of the old ones. And for people who've dedicated their lives and a ton of money to doing this, and then for it to kind of just end, and then it's like, then where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Like what's next? It just seems like a broken model to me. And it's not just affecting us. It's like sort of it's affecting everything in the media space. I mean, even if you look at Hollywood is screwed, Netflix is screwed, everybody's screwed right now in content. It's just like there's too much of it.
We had just enough time for mainstream society to understand that being a content creator was a career. Just enough time for that to happen. Yeah. Only for it to like not be possible for it to be a career anymore.
I mean, look, as a guy who went to college for magazines and then watched the magazine industry crumble 8 years out of college.
I got to tell you though, of all the shit I did, like working for the actual print magazine is like one of the more rewarding things I do.
I'm now a Road and Track contributor.
Are you?
I've now written 2 articles.
Nice.
What did you write?
The first thing they had me write was the Audi 4000. It was like our favorite drivers' cars.
Oh yeah. From like
one.
A couple issues ago, where they interviewed all the people.
Yeah. So I had my Audi 4000, which like they basically asked me for my list. I gave them my list,
and then they asked me
what my personal cars were, and like I'm like, I have a shitbox 4000, but I put it on the list because I just said like, there's something about it I like. And it was like the beater was the angle for that. And then I wrote a story on my brain's not working, but
another Red Bull maybe?
No. Yeah, seriously, right. It was part of the Le Mans package.
Oh, okay.
Is that out yet? I'm not sure. It was part of the Le Mans package in the specialized episode issue.
That was a couple
where
ago.
Everything was super specialized.
Yeah, there's a few
and I wrote
ago.
the one on the I'm blanking on their names now, but it was like 2 designers from Peugeot who built the car. The only goal was to set the fastest speed on the Mulsanne.
Oh yeah.
So, and honestly, I do it because I miss writing for magazines. And there was also a small part of me that I went through this really weird circle of life with Road and Track, which is when I was a kid, I liked Road and Track and had a subscription to it. It was the one of the Buff books I had a sub to. And then when I was building the concept for 0 to 60, I was taking 1970s Road and Track and 1970s Car and Driver, right, and using that as sort of a template of what I wanted to make, because the writing was really good, Rocky Terra and stuff like that. I mean, especially the Car and Driver stuff, because they were living.
Those guys were like real.
Well, they were living in New York City and rubbing elbows with the guys who were writing for Rolling Stone and Vanity Fair. So they like held themselves to like a much higher level than just a standard auto journalist. So I looked at that as a thing, and then obviously we did 0 to 60, and we were this weird sort of bastard mag that then kind of became an industry darling. But we were never like the Buff books. And then when Larry Webster redesigned Road and Track, he said to me, 0 to 60 was like a big part of my inspiration and design, cool. In the rework of Road and Track. And that's crazy to me to think like this book, which is such an institution, was something that inspired me and then inspired that. So, when they contacted me to write for it, I was like, oh, this feels like a circle I should be a part of. And write for it. I enjoy it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I still write my shit 15 minutes before it's due. Yeah, that hasn't changed, but whatever.
When they asked me to set lap times for a group test, that's when I was like, I'm in this game now. Like, all right, we have passed this test.
Nice.
That one's coming out.
Yeah,
this
I don't
month.
get that to that level. I get to go do some research and write about something.
All I ever cared about was being quick enough to do that job.
Yeah.
That was it. I don't need to even win races. Just be the guy they put on the in the cars for comparison test.
And let's be honest, not that many journalists are quick.
Not that many are.
No.
And I'm only okay. There's ones that are quicker than me,
I haven't been on a regular racetrack with you, but I've been karting with you, and you were way faster than you should have been in a cart. You were
I was really good at a cart.
That 250 pounds that you talk about cycling, you had 75 extra pounds on back then, and it was you a big part of that then. And I remember showing up, and you worked me at GPNY, and I was like, okay.
I was club champ at GPNY.
Yeah.
That was my home track.
Yeah.
I won the over 200-pound class.
Nice.
Yeah. It's good. Them's were the days.
The thing I want to go is check out, speaking of karting, do you see the K1 circuit thing that they built?
No.
So
that?
K1 Speed
K1,
has built a thing called K1 Circuit out Riverside area, and it's a proper
outdoors or indoors?
Outdoors competition level
way.
karting track, and you can bring your own cart there, and they're renting garages.
Get the fuck
which
out of
makes
here.
you be I think I want to buy a cart now.
I think I might buy.
Because it's only 40 minutes from my farm.
Really?
So, yeah.
Is it did they buy Adams or something? It's
no,
not Adams.
No. Look at this thing.
What?
Yeah, exactly. How
the fuck did they build this in our backyard? We don't know.
And no one knew about it.
This is the worst marketing plan in the history of marketing plans.
By the way, speaking of algorithms, I got served it on Instagram.
Oh, seriously?
So, yeah.
For real?
Wow, this is awesome.
This looks sick.
This is thermal, but for carts. And
it's
hopefully
great.
less expensive.
Oh, dude. Zach, we might need a company cart.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Except the question is, do we buy a company Legends car?
Yeah.
Ezra Dyer bought a Legends
I know.
car.
Oh, that
is
looks
it
like a good
fucking
time.
tempting?
He bought it to quote share with his kid, and then he just runs hill climbs with it. It's awesome.
Well, the thing I was
he
actually
ran a hill. I just read his car and driver story. It was great.
I was actually going to ask them if I could run a Sierra car there.
Yes.
Because the Sierra car there would be good fun. If a few of them. Well, I would get one if I could go there. with it.
Yeah.
So.
Can we go to the let's see the track. Let's see what the track. Sorry, we're getting a little inside baseball here, folks, but there is a new fucking racetrack in our city, and we need to cover it.
Well, and here's the thing, even if you're not from our city, since K1 Speed is across the country, they could be opening ones elsewhere, which, promote that. So.
Wow. That reminds me, remember in New Zealand we went to that sick go-kart track?
So
this
fun.
is what that reminds
11
me of.
meters of elevation gain.
Wow.
Someone do the...
33.
There you go.
feet.
3 times.
Where is this? Is it in Riverside?
It's outside of Riverside, yeah.
Oh, man.
So
that's far enough. I'm not going every weekend, but that's still doable.
You can come out. You can come to the farm, have some avocados, hang out.
I thought your farm was more south than
It is, but it's only 40. The way, it's 45
probably
minutes up.
3 hours.
I'm off the
from
15. So,
okay, yeah.
So once you're out there, you're out there.
Wow.
So.
All right. Look at that.
That is no joke.
God damn, that looks
I also,
awesome.
by the way, I like that they have the little Paul Richard.
Yeah,
they do. Looks good
to run off there
for the drone shots.
Yeah,
it
makes it for that.
That's fucking cool. I wonder if they're gonna have autocross on there too. If they'll run cars autocross, that could be fun.
And you do that, next thing you know, them dirty drifters are there.
That's right.
And
then all of a sudden it's
next thing you know, it's Adams.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's a rallycross track.
Adams is a good level of grime, though. Shout out to
good.
Troy Adams. He's all right. Yeah, wow. All right. Well, now we have something new to look forward to.
We should go.
Yeah, we should definitely go. Are there rental carts, gas or electric?
I think electric is the rentals, but they'll also let you run gas. I mean, there's
those are
obviously
electric.
Karting class?
No,
Hell yes.
Those go up. Those look electric.
I saw a radiator on it.
Is that a radiator or a battery?
Oh, that might be the battery.
That looks like a battery in the floors.
Yeah, because usually, that's electric because usually the engine's on the other side on a gas cart. So
okay, dude.
But I thought it was cool that you could bring your own cart. Because it's I think they're just having open practice or whatever, but we could create our own internal race series.
We could definitely waste some money on this, Zach, for sure.
I like that every time I'm here, we talk about a new race series we're going to do. Last time, it was the Toyota Previa.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Previa Rallycross.
And I don't that is the most response I got from this podcast.
It was people that
like
want
just
the Previa.
either trying to sell me their dad's Previa, right? Or people who are like, I'm in. Like, you say it, I'm in. And I'm like, you live in Wisconsin. They're like, I'll buy a trailer too. I was like, okay, this thing's got legs.
Yeah.
The mid-engine van race series.
Yeah, that would be great. Previa Cross would be excellent as well. I'm still Formula Hogwalla. I think it could be a great video series. You know?
No, what is this one?
You know what Hogwalla is? In fucking Saudi and Dubai, the front wheel drive where they just send it
100-mile-an-hour zigzags.
Yeah. Like,
my goodness.
Yeah. Pro. We could make this a pro.
Do you
series.
have mannequins on the side of the road that you get points for killing?
We could.
You just fill them with like bags of fake blood.
Dude, just have Papadakis build us a fleet of Camrys. Like, let's go.
Yeah. It's Altimas versus Camrys.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the nothing left to live for, negative credit.
Yeah.
I'm upside down in this Camry.
The BQE bomber.
You need walls on both sides so it doesn't get too out of hand.
Yeah. So that's fuck. But we could do. We could definitely do a karting series.
We need to do that. That'd be a good one.
I need a new sport to get into. Played pickleball for the first time yesterday.
How was that?
Made me feel very old.
Yeah. it's basically like geriatric tennis.
It is. Yeah, it is.
It's like tennis for people who have had knee surgery.
Yeah. It's like slow tennis or big ping pong is basically what it is.
It's less running than tennis,
It's definitely
right?
a sport that's built to also still hold a can of beer while you're playing, though.
You
so
can play it. In fact, it was like my neighborhood got together and play, and there was a lot of alcohol there. Like I wasn't drinking, but these guys were.
Game.
Yeah, there was a charcuterie board and a bunch of booze while they were playing.
Yeah.
But I need a better sport than that.
Did your hand-eye coordination go up for the first drink and then fall off?
I didn't drink, but it took me a minute to. I'd never played before, and it took me a minute to get this pacing of a wiffle ball.
Is it a sport or an activity?
It's a game.
It's a game.
I think they're trying to make it a sport. They're trying to push it on ESPN and stuff and like make a league.
Yeah,
It'll be on the Olympics before long.
Yeah, they're trying.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like it's fun enough. It's enough like tennis, but like. I'd rather be racing go-karts than a brand new go-kart track. That sounds a lot more fun.
Well, I've got a little boy now who will soon be of racing age. So I'm feeling like that's the perfect timing. Get him in a cadet cart. You know, get going.
How old?
Yeah. He's going to be 5 in a month from now.
Oh, wow. Can you get like Josh Kalis's drift Power Wheels?
I'm sure. I can
that
hit
would
him
be a
up
good
and
place
get
to
that.
start. Yeah.
Although right now he's really into heavy equipment. Like cars. The other day he told me, I said to him, whose car do you like more, mine or mommy's? Like our main car. And I drive an RS2 wagon every day, and my wife drives an LR4.
Yeah.
He's like, mommy's. I'm like, why? He's like, because it's taller. I was like, all right.
I mean, when you're
I get
small,
it. Yeah, he can
when
see
you're
out
small,
of it.
tall is
Yeah.
But you got a tractor and shit too, so
Yeah, I've got a Kubota with a backhoe.
yeah. If you're a kid,
he loves
and
that.
there's a tractor on site, who gives a fuck about that?
Digging holes.
Something tells me.
I got to tell you, fuck being a kid. If you're an adult and there's a tractor, you're like, well, that looks pretty fun right now.
Well, look, how long has Dig This been open in Vegas? A
have you
decade?
been-
I mean,
have
that
you
is
seen
a
Dig This?
successful business.
Construction
where it's just,
fantasy camp.
Yeah, I know exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, think if you're at if you're at a track and they're like, okay, you have an option. You can either take this Corvette Z06 around the track, or we will let you use this massive excavator to just fuck shit up. What would you choose?
Yeah, you choose the power.
You've driven enough Z06s around track. You probably
And I've driven excavators, and they're way better. I knocked the building down that was here. I personally knocked it down.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was I knocked it down by side swiping it with the bucket.
Yeah.
Like it was the best shit imaginable.
Yeah.
It was
I could
so
see.
great.
I could see.
Everything. I wish you could just do. You could. Could you do that? There'd probably some insurance thing. You couldn't have that experience that the public could get behind.
Just set up a wall, knock it over. Set up a wall, knock it over.
If you got to do controlled demo, they could have they could have it be a
demolition.
If you have a
Tijuana.
Groupon.
Come on down.
It was very fun though. Yeah, but if you got a 5-year-old, the tractor is. That's it.
He loves the tractor.
Can you drive the tractor?
He can't drive the tractor, but he can operate the actual excavator, the
again?
backhoe part.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because it's just joysticks. You can figure that out.
Yeah,
so.
like a 5-year-old
I'm
can
sure
do a
CPS
joystick.
is on their way to my house now saying that, but he
Yeah.
can do it. So he can't really, like, he can sit on my lap and run the controls, but he's not big enough for that. But he can drive. I let him drive the like the UTV we have on the property, like, you know, on my lap and stuff.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
it's important to have
Is
that.
the tractor steering wheel very easy to move or hard?
It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's like a hydro power assist kind of thing. So
5's pretty young, though, for a tractor.
No, totally. I was just curious,
Yeah.
like if it's a muscle thing, and when he's
no,
7, he
it's
can
the, like,
go
he
up
can't
or
really
height.
reach the pedals
yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah.
Put those blocks on his feet.
But he, like,
Indiana Jones.
understands how to drive.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he's got power wheels and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Of course, as is
As
tradition.
he has to. Yeah. It's hard because you don't want to be like the football dad and be like, you love racing cars. But between myself and my wife, who both like cars, it's kind of hard for him not to like them.
Sure.
So, but he's really more into trucks.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's real close to tall socks.
Well,
Like,
there's a lot of
there.
there's a lot of time to.
There's time to bring him back.
Yeah,
But,
there's a lot of time to pivot. Yeah. So we've got the Kubota tractor, we've got the RS2, which you drove up here.
Yep.
And I haven't seen that car in a very long time. Don't you also have an S2?
I had an
Didn't
S2
you have-
Avant, but I
you-
sold it to a friend.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you don't
I came home from Europe with 2 of the
Yeah.
same car. One had an R, the other one just was an S2. I had an R and an RS2 in the same color.
And did they drive noticeably different?
The RS2 is slightly quicker. If I'm being honest, the S2 was in better condition. Like the RS2 was a little bit more rough. Like not like visually it looked really good, but it just had like a ton of like, you know, small little problems with it kind of thing. So, but they're pretty much the same car.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And and then you have that old green Rabbit. Right?
I have
is that a GTI or a Rabbit?
No, it's a Rabbit. So it's the first year they came in here. So it's
Yeah.
a 75 swallowtail, which basically means the rear like panel has a swallow cut in it, which just makes it more unique. So I have that, which is a whopping 50 horsepower, and then that's it right there. Yeah, and
We should do, what year is it?
75.
50 horsepower. The POW is 57.
Yes.
We should have a drag race.
Yes.
We should have
Hatchback
have
drag
you
race.
seen that
Let's go.
POW?
Yeah. Let's go.
1 liter, 57 horsepower.
Yeah, this is 1.5 liter.
How many
It's a
gears
beast
do you have?
comparatively.
4?
4 speeds.
4 gears?
Yeah, tops at 90 miles an hour.
Hannah's does not. It tops at 70. 3-speed auto.
Yeah,
It's
well, you're
not
losing
good.
everything to
It's
the
not good.
torque
It's
converter's
so-
eating everything
it's
there.
so
Yeah.
slow.
We got to manual swap that baby.
They
Get
sold
it
them
up a
as
hill.
manuals, yeah, but Hannah just, it's a brunch car. So
Yeah.
that looks great, though.
That's a great looking car.
I love it.
That's been repainted, right?
No, that's original paint.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's got some rough spots on it. And it's had some rust
very
on it.
bright.
It looks really good in photos.
Yeah.
It photographs well. It's one of those
it's
cars.
a 12-footer with a cell phone.
Yeah, but it's like I bought it with the intent of immediately swapping in a 16 valve and doing all the stuff and whatever. And then like I get weird about things sometimes. I'm like, oh, you know what though? I really want it to run under its own power first, like its original power.
Yeah.
It was like really close to running, but wasn't running. So I spent like a few months just like sorting all these like random parts to get it running, and then it was up and running. And I was like, I'm going to drive it for a week, and then I'll tear it apart.
Yeah.
Like just drive it for a week, and that was 3 years ago. And I've just been driving it as it is.
Did you
And
just like be like, actually, this is fine, or did you?
as long as
just have other things to do?
I don't leave Long Beach, it's great. Right, like just cruise around Long Beach. It's like the perfect cruiser.
It's one step above a golf cart.
It's just peppy enough to like merge.
Yeah.
But the other day I drove out to San Dimas with a friend, and like I was just like, you know, maxed at 75 miles an hour. It's just like in the car the whole way, and you're like, maybe it needs a
Yeah,
bigger
driving a
engine.
car at VMAX sucks.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like.
And also there's no tax, so you're just like, I hope, I don't know.
Is there a rev limiter?
No, there's
nothing, right?
It's just a carbureted car, like So,
Yeah. The engine stops when it explodes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just listen, you're like, that sounds more metallic. Or let me bring the revs down a little bit.
Yeah, you listen for valve float.
Yeah, exactly. So
It would. I mean, even if you put like the fucking most basic ass later, you know, Mark III swap or something in it, it would
even
be
just a
so fast.
GTI 8, because I also have a Mark 1 GTI that's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And like that is great. Like it's really good as it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's a great. This little Rabbit it's great looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good color.
It's
Yeah.
become like a weird. I actually just I wrote a column for Performance Volkswagen magazine, PW, and I wrote my whole column about this thing that was like, I bought a Ferrari but like I realized that my identity is a rabbit.
Sure.
Like I was able to get to a successful point in life. I bought a used Ferrari. Whatever.
Still.
It's a 360. But like I was able to get that, right?
Yeah.
It's the most expensive car I've ever bought. And like I don't drive it. It just doesn't like appeal. Like I'm not saying I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like every time I'm in it, I'm like I should drive this more often.
Yeah.
But I like walk past that and my 911 and get into my Rabbit or my RS2. I like the if you know
sure.
kind of vibe of cars, like, or just that's one. I mean, this is the car that makes old ladies happy.
Yeah.
Like everybody loves this car. Like they just smile at it. Like,
well,
that's so
the
cute because the
too.
color works. It hits.
Yeah.
But I just kind of got to a point where I was like, you know what? Like, I think I'm. Like, you know, I've built some monster machines and things like that, and they're all just a pain in the ass. They're all just like an absolute pain in the ass. That's probably how you feel about your Mustang. Was probably that too, right?
No, the Mustang. It was a pain in the ass, and I think I've pushed all that out of my head, and I only remember the good times now.
Yeah. It's like a psycho ex-girlfriend.
But like, but I don't really have a desire for like these big custom projects anymore. I mean, even we put a different engine in my Porsche, but it was like, you take it and call me, when it's done.
Right.
I'm not physically dealing with that.
Yeah. I'm not that far through therapy yet.
Yeah.
Like, I still dream of the most insane engine swaps. I mean, I have a Toyota A86 Corolla that I'm putting a VR6 in.
An old one?
Yeah.
Or a new one?
An old Corolla.
A Hachi.
Like a Hachi,
Yeah, with a VR6?
Except technically mine's a coupe, but yeah.
But that'll fit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I wouldn't say it fits easily, but it's fitting. I have to run a dry sump on it to get it to fit.
Oh, that's
like
funny.
the levels of like now it's a full blown race car just to get the engine to fit in, just because I wanted to do something different. Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah.
So.
Dude, that's awesome.
And I saw your
That
fucking
sounds so
other
good.
Audi's not even done. Your coupe, not your coupe.
No,
90.
it runs, but it doesn't drive.
Yeah.
It's actually sitting at BBI.
I saw it
Oh, you
last
saw it at
week
BBI?
when I went for an oil change.
Which, by the way, is the shittiest thing I did to Batim, because I was moving all my stuff out of Hoonigan, and there was a bunch of stuff there, and Batim's trailer was there, and it was empty, and I had nowhere for the coupe to go, so I just put it in the trailer, and then I meant to tell him. I wasn't like that. I wasn't that much of a prick, but I meant to tell him like, oh hey, by the way, and then I just forgot, and like life went on. And a month and a half later, they went to go open the trailer. Like, it got brought back to BBI. It was parked against the wall because it was around holidays, and it gets parked against the wall, and they just forgot about it. Like, they just forgot that, like, I forgot about it. And then they opened it one day, and he just sent me a photo and was like, do you know this is here? And I'm like, oh, yeah, surprise. So I now
you now get to figure out how to make this run.
Well, it's not just that. It's like the story of my 911 was the car that I never had off the road.
Yeah.
Right? Like, of all the other cars would go down. The 911 was like, it was just, I wanted it to always be simple.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to just drive it. So, like, if something broke on it, it was the one car I'd bring to BBI and I would just be like, fix it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everything else I try to fix myself and I just open a can of worms and break it more, right? But with that car, it was like, yeah, like, I just want to keep this thing running. So I had what seemed like a boost leak at 7 pounds of pressure. Like, it would just open up, right? So I'm like, all right, bring it to Batim. He's like, oh, we'll smoke it. We'll see what the problem is. He's like, oh, it's unfortunately, it is intake manifold gasket, like, engine out. I'm like, all right, fine. So he's like, I'll pull the engine. We'll get it sorted. We'll have it back in there real quickly. 2 years later, the engine goes back in for two reasons. One, we also started the Hoonigan project.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm on like the buddy favor program.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, like, we're building this big project. So like, all the effort's gone into that. But second, by the way, I had 53,000 miles on this engine.
Yeah.
But Tim opens up and goes, you know what?
While we're in there,
we rebuilt the whole thing, forged internals, the whole thing. So he finally like said, I haven't heard from him for like 4 or 5 months about my car. Like, I've talked to him every day about the Hoonigan. And he just texts me, hey, do you want to order the Motec or should I? And I was like, for the pig? He's like, no, for your car. And I'm like, wait, why are we putting Motec in my car? And he's like, well, this will be like, I'm thinking like 800 to like 1,000. And I'm like, no, this is supposed to be my normal car. Like, no. Like, I don't want to start it with a laptop. Like, just come on. And he's like, all right. So I now have an 800 horsepower capable 400 horsepower car.
Great.
Probably great. Yeah,
probably run
for
forever.
a long time.
Yeah. I just drove it the other day. I hadn't driven it in 4 months.
400 horsepower in that car is a lot.
I have the
very
saying,
fast.
if you do not have fun with if you don't know how to drive a 911 with 400 horsepower, you don't know how to drive a 911. Like 400 horsepower is
a ton.
in an air-cooled car
That's so
is a
much.
ton of fun. So
Yeah,
no
it's
traction
so
control,
much.
no nannies, no nothing.
Yeah.
It just does its thing.
Yeah, that's so much.
And I've got like 315s out back. Like the thing just grabs and rips. It's super fun. Yeah,
that's a good car.
I hadn't driven it in 4 months, and I actually just filmed this video with Vinny. Vinny made a video about RWB because everyone's talking about RWB right now. Are you not paying attention to this?
No, why is everyone talking about RWB?
Do we live in a different algorithm?
Maybe.
we do.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So
My algorithm feeds me like leftist political shit. What does yours feed you? RWB videos.
Mine feeds me RWB, conspiracy, and Civil War. It's pretty much all I get.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
RWB
and really good
conspiracy?
farm stuff.
What is the conspiracy?
All right, I'll back it out a little bit.
All of this is alleged.
I'll back it out a little bit. Okay. So it's not even conspiracy, but I'll back it out. So about a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, a video hit the internet of Nakai gluing tow hook on the front of a car, right? And it went viral, and everyone started making videos about
like not screwing it into the tow hook spot,
like epoxy on tape holding it in place. Video of Nakai putting this tow hook on, and that obviously goes viral. And there's always been like this hater group of people who just hate raw welt for whatever reason. And all of a sudden, like, you start getting a lot of people, a lot of kind of talking heads, the classic like internet pundits being like, I would never let him hack my car. He's a complete hack and he uses a sawzall and
like
blah, blah, blah,
you
blah,
don't
blah,
start
blah.
by paying him $50,000
or getting on a 3-year waiting list.
Let him.
But the whole thing kind of like blew out from there, and I actually reached out to my friends at RWB USA, and I was like, hey man, what's the deal with this? Because like it's a bridge too far to try to defend a glue-on tow hook. I defend everything else because, from my perspective, when we first discovered RWB at 060 magazine back in like 2008, and no one was talking about it in the U.S., we were the first magazine to do a story on it. Bernu, and Tony Harmer went over to Japan to cover that. And, that was this era that, like, first of all, 911s weren't worth anything. Yeah. So that's the first part, right? Like,
964s were like
sub $10,000 for a C4.
Yeah.
No one wants a C4, $9,000 you get that for. And I bought my turbo famously for $35,000, and which was
market price at that point.
Yeah, and like no one was like, I mean, like the joke always was you should have bought an Evo instead because it wasn't as fast as an Evo when I bought it. But when when raw welt was first there, like they were building cars the way that race cars were built in the 90s, like drywall screws, like caulking. I mean, like I know that like we all now look at Singer and and all these other brands, Gunther Works, and every single person who's building a custom 911, and they are craftsmen building works of amazing machinery. Nakai is more like, to me, a fashion designer who built something that you can't explain but people love.
Sure.
Right? It's like, I'm not saying, like, I think the kits look really nice. I think aesthetically they work. But, like, does he cut everything off with a Sawzall? And, like, does he even tape the lines? Like, no. Is it a little rough around the edges? Yeah.
It says rough in the name.
Exactly. and that was kind of the point. So Vinny and I went and filmed a whole video just kind of talking. I think it comes out this week or something.
Wait, did he glue the tow hook on or no?
So I'll get to that. Because this is where everyone was like, oh, because that was definitely the one where like it goes. Apparently the backstory from what I heard from the people from RWB USA was that there was an owner who had the car on airbags, and because of the airbags, they were unable to mount the tow hook to where he normally mounts the tow hook. Maybe the tank was in the way. I'm not sure of the full detail. But they wanted to take the photos. So with the tow hook. So Nakai just cut the tow hook and glued it on. And the owner of the car thought it was funny and videoed it. And like it has been like, I mean, the past month or so, like every time I post my RWB, like I'll get comments now. People are like, "Oh, it's a hack job." Blah blah blah.
The internet's about to be forever on that one.
And the thing that kills me about it is that the internet made RWB something it wasn't. RWB were these rough race cars. They were taking old 911s and tracking them with the idlers in Japan. The cars came over here, and the initial cars were like, kind of in the same mindset, right? Like mine, Mark's, a bunch of other ones. And then they kind of became really like status symbol show cars as the price of the cars went up. And it's like, but if you think about it, like Nakai hasn't changed what he's done.
Yeah.
Like he has made the Nevermind album every single year. He's made Appetite for Destruction every year. He keeps doing the same thing. So when people started saying this, the thing I was like, why? Like, it's 15 years later. Yeah. Why are we still complaining about the same thing? Like, there were people who hated it when my car came out, and there are people who hate it today.
I think there are people who
just want to hate things.
Well, they want evidence that the thing that they thought was true is true.
Right.
And so if they already thought, here's this guy cutting up Porsches, putting these, quote, ugly body kits, not my, whatever. Ruining the sacredness of the Porsche, blah, blah, blah. And now here's a video of the guy literally taping or gluing something on.
Of course. It's everything they wanted.
It's everything they wanted.
I know. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, like, I like Nakai, and I understand, like, what he is, and I also understand what my car is. Because people were like, should have brought it. Like, someone actually commented to me on something, and I don't know why I fight with people on the internet. I really have to stop that. But I went and kind of said something to what someone else was saying, and someone else came back and was like, maybe you should have bought a Singer, Scotto. And I'm like, yeah, you don't understand where I live financially and where someone who can afford a Singer lives. It's a very different world.
But it actually,
I also got my car when it was way cheap.
But
too.
that's actually kind of a revealing comment that someone looks at you and looks at your car, and their go-to is should have bought a Singer. I mean, it is the implication is that one would be cross-shopping those two things as equals.
Well, and I think where you can actually compare it to the two is like in back to fashion is like you could go somewhere and wear something from Louis Vuitton that costs $5,000, or you could get a thrifted T-shirt that someone could say is worth $5,000.
Sure,
and like they're both. Someone would pay them for it, but like one is like a luxury designer thing with the perfect stitch, and the other one is an old band shirt that was originally $16 and screen printed in Mexico.
But has 40 years of wear and tear,
and now is like
look.
The thing, and someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah,
and I think that that's the difference. It's like, and by the way, on all that, I do want to say, like my car is 13 years old. I've had no issues with it. None of the caulking is cracked. The body kit hasn't cracked. Like it's still great, right? Like there's like it's amazing how well it's held up versus like other cars that I built where in 3 years the body kit's falling apart, it warps in the sun, like all that kind of stuff. Like so, like quality is there. I just think like his aesthetic of putting it on, which by the way is the reason people sit around and watch him.
Bro, they sell tickets.
It's crazy.
He's the only body person on the planet that can literally sell admission tickets. Yeah. That's fucking crazy. Forget the cars. That's crazy.
But I think that this is that part that like people want to hate it because it's almost like I think people look at it and go, "Oh, he got there the easy way," because it's easily done versus like the amount of work a company like Singer or we both know Matt from AI. Like when you look at a car AI builds, you're like, I know that they did everything on this car. They zinced every bolt. They did everything. They care so much. And I think when you either support a company like that or you are that company, it frustrates you so much to watch someone cut something with a saw and then be more famous than you. Yeah. Right? Like I think that's a difficult thing.
Well, cult of personality. I mean, there's a guy who looks like fucking the Japanese Doc Brown, wily-ass hair. Yeah. He's got a Sawzall, a carton of fucking Marlboro Reds, and the dude's just going at it, chain smoking, and people are fucking videoing it.
I had this random thought. It's not a theory, it's a thought. But imagine like a year from now, because apparently he's almost done with his list.
With his list?
Yeah, he has like a list because it's like it's so back ordered.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like he finishes the last car and then like commits seppuku on the hood. Like,
but imagine instead,
like the menu.
Imagine instead, we find out that all these years he spoke English. He's from Flushing, Queens. He's not even from Japan.
He's Banksy,
and he just pulled it on everyone. This has just been a troll for the past 15 years.
He's Kaiser Soze.
Yeah, he used to work at Willets Point next to Shea Stadium, and he was doing body kits there, and then he came up with a thing, and we all bought it. And he came up with a backstory.
It's the long con.
But that being said, I absolutely...
He's got like a fucking Goomba accent.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a kid from Flushing. Fucking lives off the 7 line. That is the story. Like, if that ends that way, I would be. And like, I just watched the value of my car do this. I couldn't be happier.
Oh my God,
I wish my car was worth $30,000 again.
It'd be so great.
I'd be street parked outside right now.
If it was just all.
Yeah, and the whole time, it's like the end of like Usual Suspects.
Yeah, it's like
You're
the Prestige.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, a twin.
That's how I want the story to end.
Or what? I mean, what if he can only do these builds in 24 hours because he had a fucking twin? Then when he'd go out for a cigarette, the twin would pop in. He'd tag this motherfucker.
It needs something like that. It needs something like that. So.
Yeah, a fictional retelling of the Nakai story.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance. I mean, it's funny because the internet thinks like, oh, you must talk to Nakai all the time. I'm like, I haven't spoken to Nakai in years.
Yeah.
And I see Toshi, who's his business partner, more often. But I kind of want to, like, eventually at some point sit down and say to Nakai, like, do you like what this has become? Like, are you happy where this is at? Like, where is your head at in that? Because I don't think anyone ever asks them.
That's funny.
Or he just won't answer it. Or how he answers it. And, like, I'm sure he's probably pretty bummed right now that there's, like, all these videos calling him a hack. Or he's got the bag and he don't care.
I'd like to think that he doesn't know of their existence. That's what I want for him.
Right.
Is to, like, there's people that look at the internet.
Yeah.
I just chain smoke and cut fenders. Let's fucking go.
So here's a good question. This is a good little segue. Do you guys read your own comments on your content? Like, do you pay attention to any negativity from what you get, or do you separate from that?
I look at it like the first day, but I only focus on if the negativity is constructive in some way.
Right.
If it's just like, I fucking hate you or whatever. I think I was lucky enough to watch you go through the big negatives in the early years, and now that I'm older, like, it's easy to let it slide.
In the early years?
Oh, I got called fat like 1,000 times a day. It was like horrible for my self-esteem and everything, and led into like deep depression and stuff.
Yeah, the internet's really dark, man.
Well, you would
really bad.
and you would respond. You'd respond to every comment because you were trying to answer questions.
Yeah.
But even if those questions were negative, not like the fat stuff, but if it was just a negative comment about the video, you would spend so much time responding.
I didn't have the right strategy.
It's whack-a-mole that won't end. So I think I learned from that, and I just try not to.
Now
do that.
I'll take a look at Instagram comments, but I won't look at YouTube comments at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a different swamp there.
It's equally bad.
It's tough for me because I prided so much on the early days of Hoonigan, of like the joke, like my title was Chief Creative Officer, CCO, but Vinny used to call me Chief Comment Officer because like I was the one who was in there commenting. Like people would think like there was a community manager. It was like, no, I was there because I wanted to see what was working, what was resonating with the audience, what wasn't resonating, like real customer service kind of aspect to it, right? Ken recommended me this book when I first started Hoonigan called Raving Fans. It's like a 70-page book. But it basically was a book written in a time of the expansion of brands like Walmart and like how do you compete with Walmart as a mom and pop shop, right? And the way you do it is just better customer service, right? Like people will pay more money to work with you if you get that customer service. And one of the stories in the book very quickly was there was like a big bookstore in the mall that this company was in, and they were a small bookstore, and someone came in and asked them for a book. They didn't have it. They looked online very quickly, and they saw that the store down the block had it. And they had two choices. They could either send that person to the store or just say, sorry, we don't have it. But instead, they sent another store clerk to the store to buy the book and then sell it to them for a loss.
Yeah.
Right? Sell it to them and lose money because they wanted to.
They bought a customer.
They bought a customer, right?
Yeah.
And we treated our audience that way in the early days. It got a lot harder as the company got bigger and our audiences got bigger. And that's actually back to like my conversation before of like, I do you know who Foster Huntington is by any chance? Foster Hunting. He has an Instagram. So he's actually famous for hashtag van life. So his backstory actually might have been he was either working for Ralph Lauren or Calvin Klein, one of the two. I know you obviously your family connection on your
years ago,
but he was working for one of them. Was in New York City as a Foster Hunting was in New York City as like a designer. And like woke up one day and was like, I hate this. Like, I don't want to live in the city. I don't want to do my job. Sold like all his worldly belongings, bought a Volkswagen Vanagon, and started traveling. And this is like 2011 or something.
Okay.
So it's like before like the overland and like expedition thing really kind of explodes. And he starts calling it hashtag, and it was right as Instagram launched. Okay. So he's on the.
So he literally invented van life.
So he kind of started the hashtag van life, and then the New York Times wrote a story on him about van life, and he kind of exploded from there. Anyway, long story short, we were Instagram friends. I had never met him. I had this similar moment that I was going through actually right before Ken died, where I wanted to I just needed to bug out for a few weeks. I was like super stressed. Like I was unhappy with how things were at Hoonigan. I wasn't really enjoying my job there anymore, and I was thinking about leaving. So I was like, I need to just go clear my head. Just kind of get away from everything. So I bought this Audi 4000 in Canada, as you do. I actually bought it during the pandemic. I might have talked about this on the last. I don't want to repeat myself, but I bought it, and the car sat for 2 years.
Yeah, I think you mentioned.
And then I bought it, and I drove it down. Anyway, I ended up stopping at this guy's place. He has these really cool tree houses on his property. He built these like sick tree houses on his property. So I went, and he's like, "Yeah, come by, come stay in the tree house, so on and so on." And so I came there.
Is that the tree house?
Yeah, that's a tree house.
Wow, that's sick.
Yeah, it's
I
super
love
rad.
a tree house.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
That's
so
fantastic.
Hey, look, there's me, Brian Scotto, commenting there. But went there, stayed at his treehouse, and like I had never met this kid before. Like we talked on Instagram, and that was it. And he's 10 years younger than me. And I'd never had a conversation with someone who was so much younger than me, but I felt like I was having a conversation with a mentor. Like it was one of those things. And what I realized was we were very similar in the way that like we looked at life and creative, but we did it differently. Right? Like he was working for this big company and left and went and did it on his own, right? And I went and started this thing and tried to grow it really big and then kind of got sucked into that side of it, right? Like that all of a sudden the reason I first got there wasn't the reason I was still there. My mom has this famous quote that she said to me. I don't know if it's hers or she stole it from someone else, but don't fact check her because it'll crush me. But that be careful how high you climb the ladder because you'll forget why you got on the first rung to begin with. Because remember, in my magazine days, I was an editor-in-chief at 25. Like I was pretty young to be doing what I was doing, and I was as a kid who was a college dropout, I was pretty proud of what I had accomplished. So I was kind of really enjoying I'm the editor-in-chief of not one, not two, but 3 magazines, by the time I was 26. And I had all these, I'm going to own a 911 before I'm 30. And, I created all these things of, this road to success of all the things I wanted. And my mom just was like, be careful because you're going to get to a point where you get so high up that, you forgot why you got on to begin with. Yeah. And that definitely happened.
Yeah, when you're talking about the 401ks and all that shit and the
No, and you're just a business manager. You're not, and then you're like, I didn't even want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm a mediocre manager at best, and now I'm a piss poor creative because I'm spending all my time worrying about management. So anyway, I went and I had this conversation with him, and I was like, I at that point in my life, I hadn't seeked therapy yet, so I just needed someone to fucking talk to. And this dude was like, "Yeah, you can come stay at my house. We can listen to music." I'm like, "Oh, all right, you want to talk about life? We'll talk about life."
Yeah.
And he said this one thing to me, and I don't think it's uniquely him, but it stuck with me. And he said, "You can either mean a lot to a little, or a little to a lot."
Yeah.
Right. And that I think, and at that point, Hoonigan was already a little to a lot. Right, there was a lot of Hoonigan that was a lot to a little of Hoonigan. But for the average guy who's driving a Tacoma right now that has a Hoonigan sticker on the back that doesn't even know I left a year ago, that's the little, right? But I enjoyed when we were a lot to a little. That was my favorite era where I knew a lot of the fans' names. I connected on that side, and that's where I think the Patreon stuff and all that's a lot more interesting.
Patreon
to me.
is better for that. When we have folks that ask us questions for the pod from the Patreon, there's new ones every time, and people come up with fun, usernames or whatever. Yeah. But there's also the same 30 or 40 people that come up with a pretty good question for almost every show.
And his business model was super serve those people. Right, and then whatever else happens, it's fine. But build a business off of those people.
That's what this business is. At West Side, it's in the whole company's history, 4 years history, we've had about 300 customers. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean that's not a lot.
You could remember all their names. Yeah, if you didn't have ADHD.
Remember and and I know their cars, and I know what they want, and whatever. Yeah, and so and to those people, we're fucking clutch.
But I mean, think of how insane the content thing is of I used to work for a magazine that was one of the top. This is crazy, by the way. Rides magazine was one of the top selling magazines in America in the automotive space. We outsold Car and Driver and all of it.
Really? Whoa.
Because we were so heavily newsstand.
Oh, yeah.
So newsstand, Car and Driver crushed us because every dentist in the world had a subscription.
You mean
subscription they crushed you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Subscription.
They did, but
subscription
newsstand,
they crushed us. But on newsstand, we were one of the top selling magazines
because you had strong
because we had
covers.
young kids who weren't buying subscriptions and were just buying every issue that came out, which also made the magazine really profitable.
Yeah.
Right. And this again is part of we talked about before, the European model. Like more people were buying at the newsstand than getting subscriptions because the subscriptions aren't cheaper in Europe. Like a subscription to Evo is like $120. You know, so you just buy at the newsstand.
Yeah.
So
my Road Rat subscription's like £50 a year. And it's 4 issues.
It's a nice book.
It is
a very nice book.
Yeah, that's magazine as a luxury item, which I am
all about.
I'm
all
for.
About. And that's one of the things I'm going to do next is that type of stuff. But I you know,
are you hiring?
What?
Nothing.
I
didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said, are you hiring? What's that?
Let's get to that because we haven't even talked about what I'm doing next. We'll get to that. But I mean, what was our time count now? Like we're
124.
Oh,
we have
not even
we're
touched.
fucking,
Have we started the show yet? Did we hit record yet? We're gonna hit record now.
Warm up.
But no, back to the concept of like.
Let's make sure to keep it going. With
Yeah,
a little
you
sugar-free,
got a little Red Bull there.
Sugar-free Red Beezy.
So, but you know, I think that looking at that model, it really kind of shifted the way like I want to make stuff. Like I want to make stuff for people who really, really, really care about that one thing. There's this famous episode that I get made fun of that happened on Hoonigan. It's called the Rusty Bolt episode. That's not the actual name of the episode, but I spend the entire episode fixing the Rusty Bolt. Right.
This is the Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah, and it's
whole video,
and it's like
don't get a bolt.
And it's like there's an entire group of people who are like, I fucking hate that like he didn't get more done, and then there's the other audience that's like, I hate that I watched the whole episode. And I think that for me is enjoyable. Like, can you make an episode about a rusty bolt and make it a whole episode versus like, okay, in this episode we swap in a Hellcat engine into a Rolls Royce and like where you're like, well, of course that's going to do well, right?
Yeah.
But can you do storytelling in a way that people like the other story?
But like, man, just think about the fucking margins on an episode about a bolt versus an episode about an entire car build. The margins are so good.
I was just on. Do you know the grind hard plumbing guys? Man, we live in a different world of automotive. So grind hard is a group. They got famous for the Barbie cart. So they built.
They made a full size Barbie.
They made like
car,
a Barbie like quad. Basically.
Okay,
they
that I
ripped
remember.
it, right?
Yeah, that
and then
I
the thing
remember.
that they had at SEMA was the monster bike, which is like. Which basically, like, that thing on top was what they built. And it went, like, mega viral.
Sure, okay,
It went so viral that they weren't the ones who got it viral. Like, it was like Lad Bible and everyone else is ripping their videos went viral, right? But they kind of work in this area of, like, they like building just dumb stuff. Like, most of it's cart-based. They built some Hummers.
I think I may have seen some silly shit that they've built before. Sure.
They build weird stuff.
Videos are long as fuck.
Yeah. Anyway, I went on their podcast last week, and one of the things that I spoke to them about was that I think we got to this world in, and I don't want to say the same thing if you were listening to the podcast. I apologize, but this is going for 4 hours, so we're good. But and by the way, I'm also launching my own podcast. I'm going to give you guys all my material before I even get there.
Great.
You know, so plug my own thing. So, but so then from there, we were talking about this idea of like. Have you ever gone to like a stadium to watch sports and everyone's standing? And you're kind of like, if we all sat down, we all could see the game. But now we all have to stand.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to automotive content on YouTube, which is like, we all started putting Viper engines in Miatas.
Yeah.
And now you can't just do a cool, simple build anymore because it's just not going to work because we one-upped each other to the point of like, we're putting rockets in cars.
It's video hyperbole.
Freddie has now pigeonholed himself into having to make a hurricane-flooded P1
I know.
work.
It's like, how much more insane is it going to be?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that this is where...
We've hit the edge.
We've hit the edge, and I don't know if the viewers are actually happy with that or if the algorithm's just servicing it. And that's part of the algorithmic problem is that if you were just to build a really nice E46, and there's an audience that really wants to see that, like... it's not gonna bubble up. You're not gonna get to
Good
see
to know.
it, right? And it's like,
you're right.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's just that's not gonna be the type of content that does well. Do you watch any of Vinny's content?
Yes.
I watch a lot of his like Instagram reels and stuff. I don't watch a lot of his YouTube content, but it seems like he's doing well.
Do you watch his YouTube content?
Infrequently, like 1 out of 5.
I don't want me to put him on blast, but like I'm so proud of what he's done, and also somewhat surprised because Vinny was the guy at Hoonigan who was like, I want to do something other than be on camera because I don't see being on camera being my future after Hoonigan. And then after Hoonigan, he's the guy who's like crushing it, right?
Yeah.
Like I think he's the one that's like really figured out a space for himself, and he started doing these like comparison videos. And I think he's done this really good job of taking like the old comparison video of yore, which was the Motor Trend kind of model, right, or the Haggerty model, and mix it with like a more intimate vlog type of casualness and personality that like I think always misses on everyone else's videos. And like, I don't want to call anyone else out. They're all really good friends, but they're still making TV shows for the internet.
True.
Yeah.
And I think like he's figured out this show that when I watch it, I'm getting this like comparison. Like he did this one where he compared 3 levels of 911. So he compared Bernou's C2, and then someone else's, I think, modded whatever 997, and then his GT3, and basically it was like, which one is like of these? I think he called it worth it or something like that.
Down there, base it's Corvette.
Worth it. Well, he has the
More
Ferrari
mods.
worth it.
Where's
that one.
the sweet spot? That one.
That was a different one. That was the built-on one. I don't know. He's making stuff every week. The dude's crushing on that. But like, you know, I think that this is one of those things where like, there's a sweet spot there, but I've had conversations with him because he was doing, I'm probably airing too much personal business, but like I was talking about like, this stuff is really, really good. Like I think like as someone who was in charge of content for Hoonigan, I look at this and I'm like, I know that this gets better. Like I know that this audience, like it may not feel like it's there now, but in 2 years from now, like this is the thing that can keep growing. Like you've got the right energy for it and it feels like it can keep growing. I was like, the problem with him doing car builds is his bro is boring as fuck. He builds the most simple, nuanced cars that you and I love.
Yeah.
But like, it's a GT3.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm happy that you modded it tastefully in the way I would do it, but like,
But it's competing against the custom
but it's competing
Barbie-mobile.
against the guy who's like, I took a GT3 and I got a motor out of a P51 Mustang and put it in the front, and you're like, well, I want to watch that abortion. So, so you don't watch that, and I think that it's difficult for creators where like people like Vinny, they watch Vinny because they like Vinny's personality, but I think it's hard in that world of like, is this build important enough? Is this whatever? And I got into a whole conversation.
You know what he's
with,
doing a good job of, I think, is, and I haven't, Vinny, I love you.
By the way, don't apologize. I don't watch anyone else's content.
I don't watch anyone's shit.
I subscribe to your
thing.
Patreon, by the way, and I subscribe to a bunch of people's Patreon because I felt like I couldn't tell people you need to support automotive content and not do it myself.
Oh, thank you.
But
I
whatever.
appreciate we'll subscribe to yours.
I wasn't asking for a pity sub. I wasn't asking for a pity sub.
Entry level plan.
I only have one plan. I don't offer much.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. I need to build $6.
Okay.
It's the initial one. I'll eventually shut it down once it's up and running. But like right now,
the IPO.
I'm launching 2 podcasts, which is probably a dumb thing to do, and you guys will probably tell me so. But I'm launching one podcast, which is like a banter style podcast, like what you guys do here. And then I'm launching like a very formulated concept. So 2 different shows. So the one show, which I'm calling Very Vehicular, is
not bad.
Is pretty good. It's kind of whatever. The only problem is it's a V, so I'm going to be all the way down the line. That's what I thought about. Yeah, or do you call it a Very Vehicular?
Very Vehicular podcast.
To bump it up.
You call it very,
But what I've been doing is I've been recording practice episodes and just putting all that on Patreon.
Sure.
Right? Like the first one, I had never, you guys have much nicer equipment, but I have a Roadcaster.
Yeah.
Those are nice.
That's what we use for portable
stuff, yeah. So I basically have like a portable setup.
It's fine.
I recorded in my friend's bakery the other day. I didn't even have a stand for my iPhone. My iPhone's just sitting in the corner, and you can like see the zipper of my bag.
Oh my God.
But I want it to be like that because I can be too much of a perfectionist. Where like it would take me 6 months to release my first episode, but there's something about the world I created for this Patreon audience that like I'm just gonna pump it out. You guys get to see it.
They're not gonna judge.
You watch me as I grow it, and as I get to the point where I'm like, okay, cool. I feel like I'm ready to start actually doing episodes on YouTube and kind of go there. So but Anyway, but the point I don't know.
Yeah.
I bounced around.
I was
Like,
going to say
the
that
Red Bull, clearly.
what Vinny's doing that I think really works, at least what I've seen from his Instagram content, which is just cut down versions of his YouTube content, is that he seems to be like buying, selling, wrenching, comparing a lot of cars, from that period,
Right.
where people our age could buy one.
Well, their company is called Driver's Error.
Yeah.
So him and Ron started a company
Yeah.
called Driver's Error. I'm not involved. Everyone thinks I am, but I just like my buddies and I support them, so I wear their stuff. But they started a company called Driver's Error, and that term came from a conversation that we were all in, which was like, this is the last of the Driver's Error cars, right? Like 2008, 2010, when like the Mitsubishi Evo all of a sudden came with a DSG style transmission was the shift out of it, right? Like the Evo 9 is probably still part of that. Maybe the Evo 10 isn't. Maybe it still is. But the idea that all the nannies, all of that stuff started coming in. And then by the time you get to, 2010,
it's all gone. Yeah.
It's all kind of gone, and we didn't realize it was leaving. And that so this like mid 90s to mid to late early aughts,
08, 09,
is this like the last of the Driver's Era?
Yeah.
And that was like the whole concept of their car their company, because we started looking at all the cars we started caring about, right? And we started talking about, which is the classic thing, right? The car you want in high school is the car that's going to be worth money. So it's like you start looking at like STIs, and they're like, oh, those are starting to go up. E46s, like those are starting to go up. And you start going, oh, all these cars are really starting to catch on in the way that the 80s and 90s cars did a few years ago. But that these are like still new enough that they feel newish to drive.
Yeah.
But there's a reason I drove my 1995 RS2 here and not my Swallowtail. Yeah. Right? Because it's still fine in traffic. It's still a regular car.
Yeah, I just did 150 miles in the NSX this weekend. It was great.
It's great.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's a perfect error, like Driver's Error.
Yeah. That's a great car.
And I think there's a whole audience right now that's looking for that type of content, right?
And we've mainly filmed new cars, and there are very few of them.
Yeah, that's a great combo. Let's change that. Because I just went to my first press event.
You did? You went to the Scout? I saw
you
your post and I was like,
Scout
whoa, what's he doing?
Yeah, I'm friends with Jamie over at Scout. He was at Vortex back in the day. He used to have to ban me all the time from the Vortex forums. And I went to the Scout launch, and that's about the right face. Yeah. And it was very interesting to be at a press launch and had not been at one in a really long time. And saw
pretty corporate, right?
Well, this one was a little bit different because there was a ton of people. There who were like more in the influencer space. Plus, they invited out like a ton of Scout enthusiasts to be there, which was cool. But there was just guys who like I felt like I literally saw them. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen you since the R8 launch, which was the last launch and the first R8, and you're like, they're still doing the same thing. Yeah. Like that's that. I saw. Tamara Warren, who I love her. I haven't seen her in forever, and she had disappeared for a while and was kind of back. Saw Mark Vaughn, just a bunch of
career auto
journalists, and it was funny because it's I walked away from it, came back. It's a little different. The rooms aren't as nice as they were when we were younger.
They're spending
the chicken's a little colder than it used to be.
Spending a little less money.
Spending a little less money, but
except for a couple of brands which are really over the top.
Yes, text me those because I like to go to those events.
You want to catch a ride when a luxury brand is under new ownership, like when Stroll bought Aston. Then you want to go on the launch for the next car.
That's the move.
They
right?
rented a fucking hotel on the cliff over Monaco for a month. And they had 18 DB12s, and and there was 7 or 8 waves of 3 days each. And it was Michelin this and the wine pairings, and it was fucking crazy. It was millions and millions and millions of dollars.
And their total debt as of June 2024 is $1.7 billion.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
But that's where you want to catch them.
Do you remember when Audi used to have what they would refer to as the Audi bubble? Like if you went to an Audi event, they wanted to make sure that you never left Audi.
Oh, yeah.
Like you'd be staying at a hotel, and you wouldn't get on an elevator with someone else from that hotel who wasn't part of the Audi trip.
And they'd program your TVs, and
everything
the home screen was Audi.
Everything was super programmed. One of the I'll tell this one quickly because I love this story. So it was actually, I jokingly was talking about the R8 launch. It was the R8 launch. It wasn't. It was the launch, the V8 R8 launch.
Yeah.
And so it's the international launch being held at the Sanctuary. Do you remember the Sanctuary?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
I was there
resort.
a week ago in Scottsdale.
Yeah, in Scottsdale.
The road and track event. First night.
Fantastic resort.
Boss.
So, I don't know. I miss my connection. I fly in. I get in super late, and I'm going to check in, and they're like, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't have a room for you." I was like, "Okay." I don't even it's late, so I don't even know who to call.
Yeah.
And this woman who was the head of PR, I think her name was Christine Wilder or whatever. She came out. She was head of PR Germany.
Okay.
And she starts just yelling at these people. Like, what do you mean you don't have a room for him? Like, you need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Such and such and such. So I basically get put in the presidential suite.
Okay.
So I'm in my early 20s at this point, mid 20s, and I have a lot of friends who lived in Scottsdale and Phoenix area. So I just start calling everybody up, being like, guys, I got 4 rooms. One has a hot tub in it. I have about 100 Heinekens I've ordered to the room on Audi's tab. Come on over, let's go. And so we party, have a ton of fun. I go to the drive the next morning, party again that night, skip dinner. Actually, I made cocktails, and at cocktails, I was hanging with Christine, and I was beer drinking at the time. And all the other journalists at this era, this is an era to kind of put this in time. I was the youngest person there by a decade.
Yeah.
Everyone else is
This was at the very beginning of YouTube.
They weren't
Everyone
inviting
was
the blogs.
career.
Yeah,
it was
right.
Yeah.
I was getting in because I was still a print
was
magazine.
not getting an invite.
Jalopnik, Johnny wasn't getting an invite.
Yeah.
Davey wasn't getting an invite. But because I was a magazine, I would get the invite. And so anyway, I'm there, and Christine, being German, was like, oh, finally, someone who drinks beer. So her and I drank a bunch of beers together, and then the next morning, I'm checking out, and I see her, and I know I had made a good impression, so I said, hey, I realize that you probably don't have any spare R8s, but I'm in town for the week. Can I borrow an S4?
Or whatever.
Or something else, right?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, we'll get something sorted for you for sure. Where are you staying? I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the Valley Ho in town. Why aren't you staying here?
Best hotel ever, by the way.
Valley Ho is fantastic.
The Valley Ho is my favorite hotel in the state of Arizona, possibly in America.
Mid-century modern, and they were mid-century modern before mid-century modern was cool again, right? They've been doing it for years.
Bull
right?
Run 2010, we went there, and it was amazing.
Yeah, it's a great hotel.
Yeah.
My first press launch of all time was at the Valley Ho.
No way.
For the Dodge Caliber SRT4 launch.
Oh, my God.
Wow. That was my first press launch, 2004.
That is the biggest mismatch of great hotel to shittiest car ever.
Anyway, we'll get back to that.
So you're staying at the Valley Ho.
I'm staying at the Valley Ho, and she's like, that's ridiculous. We'll just extend your room. And they don't downgrade me to the normal room all the other journalists are. They keep me in the 5-bedroom suite that I'm staying in that has its own private indoor pool kind of thing.
What?
And I just
was it one of the houses?
Yeah, it was the house. It was the house, down staying in my own villa. Yeah. And we partied every night. Yeah. And I thought by the end, I was
only Scottsdale trash can do.
Yeah. What's the statute of limitation? We stole a taxi cab. Oh my God! When I say we, I wasn't the one driving, but I may have been in the back seat, and the people behind us had to pick up the taxi cab driver and bring him to the house because we were out at the bars, and this girl was like, "We need to go here," and the guy was like, "I don't know where that is," and she was like, "Get out," and he got out of a car and she got in, and I'm in the back seat, and she just takes off with the guy outside the car, and then my other friends had to bring him. So he came back to the sanctuary with us.
The Buster back. The Buster came.
Yeah, but we brought him with us, and then he partied with us at the sanctuary. It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, stole his car. It was great.
I've never been in the presidential suite before. What do you got in there?
And then at the end, I'm going to check out, and I'm just like, they're going to hit me with the room charge. Not the room charge.
But they're going to hit me
with the booze charge.
Nada?
Covered.
Yeah.
This was just epic. I was ready for because I had said to my friend the night before, hey man, you might have to help me on this. We went pretty wild last night. When they're just delivering bottles of scotch to the room.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Wow. If you order a bottle of scotch room service,
you should bring the whole bottle.
Jeez,
can you bring the bottle and 19 shot glasses?
Dude, Zach and I went to, I want to say it was the 2nd gen Hyundai Genesis Coupe launch, the facelift in Vegas.
Yeah.
Mandarin Oriental in Vegas, which is a hotel most people don't even know exists in Vegas. It's a hotel within another hotel.
It was the hotel. Wasn't it called the hotel for a while or something?
It might have been, but it's like
it's the tall one inside the other one.
It's like there's like 7 floors of it inside whatever the fucking. So we get. I mean, they put it's Mandarin Oriental, so every room is all right. It's at least at a pretty high baseline level. But Zach and I, this was in our room sharing phase. We would get the double and share the room, which we did until we were about 36.
By the way, Ken Block and I shared rooms in the early days.
Yeah. No,
he was a multimillionaire, but we still shared rooms because there was a budget. Because he was good about following a budget.
But the room, the adjoining room that our room was connected to, they left the door open, and I fucking peeked, and it turns out that we were like the 7th bedroom of the Jay-Z suite. And they had not, and nobody was in that bitch. And it was literally like 10,000 square feet. There's a gym. There's a pool in it. There's a full bar, like where you would have a bartender and full liquor bottles, and nobody. And we were like, okay, well, how do we handle this? And we're like, well, we're going to go to the dinner. We're going to go to the presentation and all that. And if we come back at like 9, 10 at night, nobody's in, that's our room.
That's our room, yeah.
We fucking did some damage in that bitch.
Oh, so good.
But we couldn't like tell anybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, trust me, this is the first time I'm telling the story. I'm never getting invited to an Audi event again.
Yeah, dude, Sanctuary in 2009? It must have been brand new.
Yeah, it was brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
That's a good hotel.
Did you do Bull Run in 2006?
No, I did 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah.
I did 2006. The Z06 had just been launched. We convinced, I don't even think it was out yet. Like, no one had seen it yet. We convinced GM to give us a Z06 for the week. And it was a ton of fun, but we got to Vegas, and we actually separated from everyone from Bull Run because we were just kind of like done with everyone else on Bull Run. And we knew some girls in town. We called them. And next thing you know, we were partying in the actual Rain Man suite.
Like from the movie?
Like from the movie. Like it was the
Where
actual.
is it? What
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. It was one of those nights. But I remember that was one of those moments where you're like, yeah, this is a crazy life we live. Here I am partying in the Rain Man suite.
I've heard that you can, I forget which one of the hotels in like old Vegas, like Fremont, Vegas, is the hotel that's Biff's Pleasure Palace. And I've heard you can get the Biff Tannen suite in that hotel, but I've never actually tried.
Well, isn't the Elvis suite still in Westlake?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I've never tried, but I'm down with Fremont Street though. Old Vegas.
I like Fremont way better than actual Vegas.
Yeah.
I don't like how hard it is to get around Vegas.
And Thad lives in Vegas now.
Wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went to Vegas. Yeah, he's just
What's he doing out there?
Freelancing for one of these like autono racing teams that's participating in this. Is it Bahrain?
He's a dad now too.
He's a dad. He has a huge baby. He has a huge Viking baby. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah. And I'm fucking He got to come get his goddamn E36. He bought that E36 with the S54 swap. It's been sitting at my fucking Gardena store for 3 months. He's got to come get it. Dude, what is 321 action?
Okay.
It's on your Instagram profile still, and I was like, what the fuck is that?
So it's my new production company / shell company / creative agency. So basically,
Cayman Islands?
Yeah, Cayman Islands, of course. No, so basically I Delaware. No. Actually, I think it's California, which is the dumbest thing ever. But so I stepped away from I left Hoonigan and just kind of like kid eject. It was exhausting. Hoonigan was exhausting. Dealing with Ken's death was just tough, and I felt like I was pulled in 1,000 different directions. And I was also like trying to be a dad, and it was like a lot going on at once. And I was just like, I'm just not in this anymore. And I probably ejected way too far. Like I went like full opposite side. You
bought a farm.
I bought a farm.
It's a pretty hardcore eject.
Yeah. I bought a farm. But when I went to go work for this other company, which by the way, a company called Super Plastic, I did this, Area 15 in Vegas.
Wait, what is that?
Area 15?
Yeah, what is it?
Area 15 is like an experiential. They have an experiential place, so they've got everything from like, it's definitely somewhere you should go high. Like,
Okay.
it's definitely, like, you go there and you
Handle
walk
that.
through and you're like, I can't imagine being here sober. But the Meow Wolf is an artist that has a thing called Omega Mart there, and it's like a fake supermarket with like all weird items for sale. And it's all like an art installation thing.
Okay, cool.
Sounds
fun.
I just designed and was sort of the lead creative on a project there called Dopamine.
Good name.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
good fucking...
Thank you.
You come up with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
God, you're good at naming shit.
Yeah, that's one of my specialties.
You are good at naming shit.
So Dopamine, and it's all about like the chase for dopamine and like all the different things we do for it, and it's this experience that you go through. And I don't want to give too much away. It's going to open like a few weeks, but I did that with them. It was a ton of fun. But I sort of like I like woke up one day. And like great company, great people. Actually, Jen Van Dyke, who was the CEO I brought into Hoonigan right before we sold the company, who really helped us like kind of fix a culture problem we were having. Like she was great. She was there. I went to go work with her. It was a ton of fun. But I sort of had this moment where I woke up one day and it was like I realized I was in a rebound relationship. Like I was like sitting there looking at the girl on the couch, being like, I don't love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I was like, all right, I need to leave. I needed to leave in a way that I didn't I didn't do any damage to the company I was at.
Yeah.
But also I needed to kind of like get back into what I was doing. And I think two things. One was, when was the last time you worked for somebody? Like
I work for Own Track right now.
Yeah, but like really?
Dude, I was just doing customer service for a week. I wasn't writing articles.
Okay, so you have a boss.
I was leading a group of 50 paying customers around the state.
So you have
of Arizona.
a boss.
I mean, yeah, I can be fired.
Right. Okay.
There are people who can tell me what to do.
So I think one of the things I learned after being an entrepreneur for 13 years is I'm not a good employee anymore.
I'm definitely not a good employee.
Yeah.
No,
I'm like ungovernable.
I'm not ungovernable because I do genuinely want to help, and I do
too.
and I do good customer service. And
I don't
stuff
stay in
like
my
that.
swim lanes though.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either.
Like,
I say
still
things to people that could fire me.
like I'm the head of the company, even when I'm not, right? Because I'm still going, why are we doing it like that? And they're like, that's not your job.
Yeah,
and now that you said it, like this person's upset with you.
100%.
Right? Like
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
used to people being upset with me, but not being able to do anything about
Yeah.
it.
No, if I couldn't do the exact thing that I do, I couldn't do anything.
So
So
I woke up one day and I was like, okay, I'm not happy doing this, and I want to go back to doing automotive, but like I don't know exactly what that is. And I went about it in like a very I have severe ADHD, but I can keep it under control at some points. But like I'm kind of all over the place, and I started to I spent the past year, and we don't need to talk about my therapy too much, but I spent the last year like really looking at ADHD and like what it meant, like what is ADHD, right? So I was never diagnosed with it as a kid. I clearly had it. I was the ADHD joke to all my friends. At 0 to 60, we used to do this thing. I think actually Spinelli started it, or Richard Chang started it, where I would just start talking and they would do this, which meant I was going on a tangent. Like, Scotto, get back to where you're on a tangent, because I was all over the place all the time, right?
Yeah.
And,
It's good for
but I never
podcasting.
dealt with it, right? I never dealt with it. And then Hoonigan, I just got my dopamine hit from Hoonigan, and the ADHD thing helped. Like, Scotto likes lowriders today. Scotto likes donks. Scotto likes Indy cars. Like,
as long as
what else
there's
does Scotto like?
Huge team of people
Right,
that
and
can
we're able to kind of
execute
go and
weird
go crush
whims.
all of it.
Yeah.
And then I went to go work for a company where my ADHD was troublesome because I wasn't able to. It was like, no, we need you to do this today, like this. And I'm like, I'm going to go do this instead. You know. So I sat there and I was like, so last year I was like, okay, I need to figure out what the hell's going on with me. I'm 44 years old, and I need to figure out like how like to deal with it, because I was actually really starting to have like a dark negative side to it, right? And we don't need to get, and I think we talked about this a little last time, how like, Ken's death was not just Ken's death, but it was this time where like there were all these other deaths I didn't deal with. Rachel's, all these other people who died in my life that I was just like, I'm working.
Yeah.
I'll deal with it tomorrow. But Ken's death, my world stopped. I had no choice but to deal with it. It was like everything I did. I couldn't work out of it. I didn't really know how to deal with it, and I didn't really. I just once I got through the initial part of it, I just dug back into it, and then the work didn't give me what I wanted out of it. Maybe kind of whatever, and then I was just trying to manage all these things in life, right? Like, why do I own 27 cars? Right? Like, why?
27?
Yeah,
27.
it's bad. I own 27 cars, and like more of them run.
How many are at now? Still at 27?
No, I'm at 27 today.
Oh my God.
Actually, one of the content things.
Pain in the ass.
It's such a pain in the ass. I got into the RS2 today, and I'm like, the hell is that noise? I pop the hood, and I look, and the like AC clutch is sticking, and I'm like, That's not an easy fix.
Yeah.
Because Porsche decided that the Audi AC clutch wasn't good enough, so they had to make their own, which are NLA now. So now I got to go search it down in like a WhatsApp group to go find one. But anyway, I started to kind of look at like my life and started to realize that like, yeah, you're really creative and that part has worked for you, but you're also kind of a nightmare for people. And like people like I had this weird relationship with everyone at Hoonigan, which is like, I really think everyone loved working with me, but they were also like, we don't know what we're getting into today, right? Like, what is Scotto going to be today?
I think there are a lot of leaders that become leaders, but then can't handle being leaders for those exact reasons. I think like you inspire people to follow you because of the ideas, but then when they're there, it's like, what am I supposed to do with any of this?
Right, and also, I think that's one part of it too, and then also the blurring of like what is leadership and what is management. Which is like a whole other world of things. And it's like, I don't want to be a manager to anyone.
Right.
Like, I want to inspire you, but I don't want to yell at you for being late to work today. Yeah. Right? Like, that's the part of the job I didn't want to do. And I got way too involved in that side of it. But I sat there and I was like, okay, I spent the past year, like, reading books about ADHD, better understanding, like, how it was affecting way more things in my life than just, oh, you're forgetful or you spin off, and realizing why it was affecting my moods and all this other stuff, and also why it makes me buy 27 cars. So I was like, all right, knowing this, knowing everything about myself, I'm just going to write a list of like what I want to do in life and what makes me happy, right? And for me, the first thing is like, I'm just not money motivated. It's just not who I am. I like to be secure, but like I'm not the person who's like, oh, I made this much money, that meant it was a successful year. For me, it's like, oh, I got to do these things, that made it a more successful year.
Yeah.
I would say for me, my most successful years were probably not my most financially successful years, right?
Okay.
And
you don't have enough money where working is optional, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but that bankruptcy that happened at Hoonigan also bankrupted all of my equity, which was about 70%.
That's
so
great.
I lost most of what I sold the company for. So like, so it definitely was a little bit of a reset
not
of
great.
like, oh shit, it's not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be to walk away.
Vultures.
Yeah. So anyway,
okay.
So I sat down and I kind of said, you know what I like doing? I love doing different things. I love doing different projects. I want to be able to do a podcast for 6 months and then maybe sunset it for a little bit, go do something else. I want to go do a documentary. I want to be able to create a cool product with somebody. I want to go, and that's one of the reasons why I asked how the Run and Track Drive was. Like I used to do that with my car club Auto Creek when I was 19. Like I love doing like planning and running drives.
Those are really fun actually, and the people who come do seem to really enjoy them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things that go into it, but they are a good time.
No, like I look
Rob
at the guys who do
Ferretti
like,
does them too. Matter of fact, he was in Sedona with a group of 30 cars the day after we were in Sedona with a group of 30 cars. He texted me, he goes, "Were you just in Sedona?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "I'm here with like 30 cars, and here's the hotels we're staying at, and I was staying at this other one."
But you know, for me, it's like I just want to be able to do all these different things, and you know, and you have like a very diversified life. Right?
Yeah.
Like you've got the Road and Track thing.
I have to.
You've got this as a podcast that you've been doing for how long now?
12 years.
12 years. Congratulations.
This is like episode 980 something.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
It's huge. And then you also have like West Side Collectors, like which is like a whole other business. And although it all lives in automotive, they're all individual businesses.
Yeah, and all of them are hedges against, you know, because all four aren't through the roof at any one time. So right now, like YouTube's in the shit, but like it's okay because like parking's all right, and magazine's good and whatever, and so it's all just like, you know, one or more will collapse under their own weight or the algorithm or whatever, and then there will be other things to do.
Yeah, so for me, I was like, okay, I need to build a base company that can do all the things I want to do, because I treated Hoonigan.
You could have like a fucking race service. Basically,
I mean,
an
like
automotive production house,
and it's like for me, it's like I treated Hoonigan like this for a bit, and it was problematic in that I probably stretched Hoonigan broader than it should have been at points. Like we did everything from the Race of Gentlemen because I thought pre-war fucking hot rods was cool.
Man, you want to talk about instant content death?
Yeah,
I'm totally with you. I wanted to go do it too, but.
And I love Mel and those guys. I love that whole crew, and I enjoy it. And I would love to go make the right piece of content for them, but it wasn't really the right piece of content for Hoonigan.
Yeah.
And and I just am broader in what I want to go do.
The street race in 120-year-old cars.
Oh yeah,
Me and Zach do in Newport. It's a good
I don't know about
time.
This.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
Pre-1907 or earlier, and it's like a 50-mile. I mean, it is a street race.
They do a Model T race in Long Beach where they race up to the top of Signal Hill.
Really?
With like old Model Ts.
So we can get in on that. Yeah, that's.
But
cool.
like I like all that stuff. So for me, it's like, hey, how can I go broad, but then keep a company that works all together? So basically, I'm going to do client work and consulting. One great thing about having 20 years in the business is people will pay you to do stuff for them like that. But then use that to help sort of fund the projects that like I just want to do. And like I don't really care. Like I actually don't really want a ton of other partners involved because it's like it's a thing I just want to do on my own. We're in talks right now of putting together like a documentary on Ken, or obviously something that I'll take some time to do that.
Certainly,
and I think that's
footage.
And I think that's part of the thing for me is I want to be able to like do this for 3 or 4 months and then change and swap over and do this and do that, because in some ways I had that at Hoonigan, but then the other thing, like every day, even when I was filming Gymkhana, I was still running a company. Like I didn't have that ability to like just go do this one thing and be hyper focused on this one thing and not have to like also worry about all this stuff in the background. So
yeah, are you able to like continue like? Do you want to chase what you think the audience wants, or do you just want to like Rick Rubin it, where make the content that you want to make and just like hope they find it?
I mean, I love Rick Rubin. I just read his book.
Yeah. He has like contempt for the audience.
Yeah, see, I don't have contempt for the audience. I have contempt for the algorithm.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Like I believe that I know there's an audience that's there that wants to watch what I want to watch. What I realize is that we got on this when we lost track for a second, but the audience is inflated from what it really should be. So before I was saying Rides, one of the biggest magazines on the newsstand, right? It was doing around 200,000 plus circ. 200,000. It was one of the biggest automotive newsstands.
Yeah.
That's blah numbers on YouTube, right? Like,
well, yeah, but if they're spending $7 an issue, it's a different story,
right.
isn't it?
It's a different relationship.
Yeah.
But I think like we all got to this expectation of 1 million plus. I mean, I'm looking behind you and there's a plaque on the wall that says, Smoking Tire for passing, 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many subscribers Hoonigan had in total when we were done. 6, 7,
lot.
all with all different channels, right?
Yeah, a lot.
But that number is sort of out of control. Like if you put all those people in a room, you'd be like, this is a lot of people that we can't actually like. You can't really connect with them on that way. So for me, part of it. Are you trying to? Did Zach just leave?
I just like if Zach leaves to go to the bathroom or get water or something, that's normal. But he's been gone for long enough where I'm like a little concerned.
Like, do you want to pause and check on him and make sure he's okay?
Maybe. Like it's one thing if he.
I can also just keep talking by myself. I'll talk about.
I mean, Zach. I think he might be on the phone, and he was talking to. He was talking to someone earlier when you got here that was like important, and maybe he had to take that call. And if so, that's fine. I just want to make sure I can open the door.
Okay. And he's
like, fucking. Today's the day we learn he has type 1 diabetes, and he's on the floor.
He's having a seizure.
I guess like the stats.
Because it'd be weird to be like, we set the record, but Zach died.
Zach died.
But Zach had to die for it. But we set the record, guys.
Yeah, it was a feat of endurance.
I hope that's the cutout.
No, but I think so. The point you were making was like it's inflated because it's being fed to people algorithmically, but it's not finding the people who really want to watch it.
There's like this thing that it has become a meme, which is like if 50 people told you today they liked you, you would feel amazing. But if you only get 50 likes on Instagram, you feel like you suck.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sure.
Like we have moved into this world where like we just expect a certain level of validation in the digital world. But if you actually compare it to the validation in a regular world, like if you and I said...
Yeah. I used to frame video view counts in the context of Wembley stadiums.
Yeah. Oh, for
I used
sure.
to go, oh shit, like 4 Wembley stadiums.
Yep.
You know,
we used to do the same thing.
Yeah.
When we would try to explain to people how big Gymkhana was.
I'm going to switch it up, go with the AC slider.
Oh, nice. We would compare it to populations of countries. Like, this is the population of Ireland.
Aggressive.
This video is done the population of Ireland in views. But, like, if we said, hey, you know what, let's do this podcast live. Let's do it in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
And if 500 people showed up for that, and even if they only paid $5 a piece, $10 a piece, we would high five each other going, man, that was great. We got 500 people to stop what they're doing today.
Yeah.
But you're going to get, 10, 15, I don't know what your viewership is, but you're going to get a lot more than that, right? Like 100 times more than that maybe on an episode. And like, it's still like we compare it differently, and I'm trying to be.
It's hard to make the digital numbers feel like real people.
Right.
And it's hard to bring those digital numbers to any other medium, whether it's an in-person event or selling a magazine or selling a fucking experience thing or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's why like Patreon is a good barometer, because it's like the 1% to 2% of your like biggest fans will basically, contribute as much financial resources as selling ads to the other 99%, but they're much more involved.
My whole concept for like what I want Patreon to be for everything I'm doing, and whether that's the podcast or stuff I'm doing with 321 or other things, is almost like they're like an advisory group, right? Like, if you're paying for this, you should have a say. Right? Like, you should have a say. That doesn't mean that everything you say I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm going to wait.
But I'll listen to you.
I'm going to weight your comment more than I'm going to weight a comment on YouTube, because you cared enough to, especially your critique. Right? Especially your critique, because you cared enough to say, this is worth it for me to pay for. The person who watches 5 minutes of your video and is like, I fucking hate Scotto. I don't know how much I should weight that. Have they been watching me for months and all of a sudden don't like me in that episode? Well, then I should care, but I don't know,
Probably not.
But if you've been a subscriber for 3-4 months or 3 or 4 or 5 years for you guys, and then all of a sudden someone's like, hey, I don't like the direction you're going. I think that gives you like a better like, that makes sense. That makes sense. You know, we should change that. So, because you learned that in the magazine world, when a magazine doesn't sell, you're like, guess no one wants minivans on the cover of the magazine. We're not doing that anymore. There goes the Previa challenge. So,
Previa challenge probably wouldn't. Who did? Was it the Rallycross guys did the Van Prix?
Van Prix, yeah. So that's done by actually the guys who one of the head of marketing at Dixon does it, which is Jim York. Jim York is like, Jim York is his own kind of crazy person. Jim York, and I love you, Jim, but Jim York is a man of no skill who does very dangerous things. Right? Like Jim York's the guy who's like, who's going to jump that? Jim's like, I will. And his whole tagline is, I'm never going to die, or I'm going to live forever. Oh, boy. And I'm like, hopefully that ages well. But he is a man who hangs out with some of the most talented people in the world, like Travis Pastrana, and really has no talent, but
just like does the same
lacks
shit.
The fear gene. Yeah. So he's doing the same stuff as Travis without really the skill of understanding how to do it. So that famous video from Cletus of the van jumping, the really, really big one, that was him. Like, he's that guy, but he kind of runs the Van Prix stuff, which they were doing at Nitro Rallycross. But I think Nitro Rallycross is no more now.
Are they really? Oh, that's unfortunate.
It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah,
Rally's had such a hard time in America. So
it's just, they keep trying to find ways to make it a better spectator sport, but it never quite sticks, does it?
So
I thought Rallycross was promising.
I thought Rallycross was the best option, because Americans want their like paint bucket of soda and sit in the stands and watch cars go door to door and crash into each other. Like I really thought that was going to be the piece. I think that it struggled in that why Rallycross is so good in Europe is that the tracks are built specifically for Rallycross. They're not like temporary racetracks, so they like are really, really good tracks, which gets better racing, gets more passing. In the U.S. in the early days of Rallycross, once you were out, like if you didn't get the whole shot,
you're done.
You were done, right? Like it was very hard to pass. Like maybe you could time a Joker lap properly and get ahead, but otherwise that wasn't there. WRC has been talking about bringing the WRC to the U.S. in Tennessee. So the rumor is Chattanooga area or Nashville area. And I think that there's – I don't know a lot about what's going on internally there, but I think they're kind of looking at the Formula One success in America, right? I mean, holy shit.
Huge.
Like, do you watch Formula One?
A little bit.
Okay.
I watch a lot of fucking. I've watched all the Drive to Survives.
Okay. Yeah.
So obviously the edited version of Formula One.
Yeah, yeah.
And I watch the races if I catch them. I don't wake up at fucking 4 a.m. to watch.
So I was really into Formula One in the 0 to 60 era, right? Like, so that was like the Braun era, like Lewis Hamilton coming in. Like, I was really enjoying that era, and I was the guy who was like going to the bar that would like show the race at 4 a.m. and stuff like that. And then I just got too busy. Like, it was
not convenient to watch.
It wasn't
Formula
that the
One.
sport changed. It was just like I got too busy. And now I'm in this world where like I go to some like barbecue in my neighborhood, and every guy there knows more about Formula One than I do, and they're expecting me to know as much.
You're the car guy, right?
Yeah, you should know this. And I'm like, I don't know who.
They all watch Drive to Survive
because they're all like they're loving it, and I think the FIA is looking at that and saying, okay, how do we now import WRC? But instead, we all know who the audience is for Formula One, right? The audience for Formula One is a particularly more elite audience. But if you look at WRC, you're like, WRC fits a little bit better in like similar to a NASCAR audience than, sort of where F1 lives. And I think that is like it, and it'll be questionable of like how they position it, right? Like
that'll be interesting to see if that works.
What makes WRC, because in order to enjoy rally, you have to be the kind of person who wants to like get hit by rocks and dirt. And by the way, I am the kind of person who likes getting hit by rocks and dirt. Like that is my people. Like I like that.
You stand in the spray area.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Gravel machine gun.
I once took to get that shot of the rally car passing. I once took a rock to the nuts at probably 110 mile an hour wheel speed.
Oh yeah.
Close range. Tom Morningstar has the video of me going down. I fucking get the shot, I pan, and then I drop on the ground. I think it ended up in the actual video we made. It was bad.
We were in Mexico once. It was me and Ron. He was shooting photos and I was shooting video, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. We were standing right next to each other. And there was this like overcrest, like left-hand turn, pretty fast. It was probably like a 4 or 5. And there we were on the other side of a barbed wire fence, right? And the first 5 cars come through, and everyone is basically running the same line, pretty shallow. We're like, okay, Ken's 6th on road. He'll be the 6th car through here. And he comes through like it was a straightaway. Yeah. Just full, flat out, over the crest, into the barbed wire fence. So we immediately start running, and I was like... It was like, those toys from the 40s where like everywhere, like you have 3 people in a row and their hands all move together like an elf toy or something. We were basically that, where we were running.
Like a foosball table.
Yeah, like my kneecap was in the back of his knee as we were running. Like we were basically playing like the elephant game while running, right? Yeah. And we were just running. And I remember listening to the barbed wire whipping over our heads because Ken caught the barbed wire and started ripping the barbed wire off the fences.
This is like out of a fucking Michael Bay movie.
So,
Great.
Do you know Magic Johnson? Have you ever met him? He's a
basketball player.
No. He's we call him
Matt Johnson.
Matt Johnson.
But we call him Magic. I met Matt Johnson. Yeah.
So Magic was up on the hill, caught the whole thing. So he's filmed this whole clip. It exists somewhere where the 2 of us are running. What we didn't realize was Ken also hit a massive boulder about this big that was in the air behind us, and like I was like, I'm gonna die. It was totally I'm gonna die feeling, and then we didn't die, right? And it was like, okay, we didn't die, great. And then we see Magic, and Magic's like, you got to see this footage. And we're like, oh, that's great, we didn't die. And then the next morning we wake up, and the cover of the local newspaper is the photo of us running, like just fully running with a boulder in the air, barbed wire ripping, and Ken just like sideways past. And you're like, that's rally racing.
Great shot.
That's rally racing. Like you might die.
Yeah.
You might die. And like that's a different type of audience. Like at F1, it's like, it might rain, you might get wet.
No, it's like the fucking running of the bulls, but with cars.
It is running of the bulls.
It's the running of the bulls with cars. Yeah. I've watched rally in person before.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places that you can stand where you could die.
In Mexico, you go down there and they just yell, burro at you. Yeah. Right? Like you're an ass.
I think a couple people died.
I just heard about that. Horrible. Yeah. But not even
in the pits.
In the pits.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Guy was, I guess, revving his engine and yeah, I don't know.
Slipped off the clutch.
I don't understand. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand the detail of what happened, or thought he was in neutral and was in drive.
But Baja is I mean,
it's a scary place.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also really scary when something does go bad down there because you realize that the chance of people showing up to save you in a timely manner is pretty rough. Yeah. There's a hill climb down there that I really want to. It's operating now. We sponsored it when Hoonigan sponsored it when we did something with Fiat down there, and it's mostly motorcycles.
Oh, I remember that with the fucking 124 Abarths, right?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was the San Pedro Martir hill climb. It's like 24 miles long.
Wow.
And I really want to do an event there, but I've looked into a bunch of it, and like the number one thing that you get into is like you have to medevac to San Diego. Right, like you have to be ready for that, right?
Yeah,
like there's just not a good enough trauma facility close enough that you have to like sit there and be like, okay, we have to pay for a helicopter.
Is it on the peninsula?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, you can probably go up to Ensenada, but like at a certain point, once you got them in a plane, you might as well just fly the extra 5 minutes up to San Diego. But
24-mile hill climb,
it's
though,
crazy.
is serious.
It's a really, really fun road. It's a really fun road.
Did you get to drive it when you were?
I did in a Dodge Ram 1500, and I was running a pretty good time. Like because I drove up and down it like 17 times. So by the time it was done,
you had a good number going.
I was pretty good. I think I might have been faster than one of the 911s there.
How was the tarmac? All right.
It was great. It's like it's a national park.
Oh,
it like goes up to like an observatory. Oh, so it's like it's a drive up, drive down. There's no back out way of it. And they had like just paved it when we were there. Yeah, it's a beautiful road.
Yeah,
so one day the Scotto
hill
Invitational.
Climb, that's when we buy a Legends car and bring that.
We'll go there for that. Yeah,
the Scotto Invitational would be very sick.
Yeah. So and then if it's for me, it's like it's not just motorsport. It has to be like a full like content thing. Like you got to go do and make a movie about it.
Yeah,
like, you can't just be, it's like go.
It's like an endless summer really vibe, but of hill climbing.
I like that. that. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Motorsport, and Thad keeps talking about doing La Carrera over and over and over, and he's in typical Thad fashion. He's like, oh, like all we have to do is like buy like a car that exists that qualifies, and then we'll do the event and then we'll sell it. And I'm like, so what you're saying is we just like buy like $100,000 race car.
Yeah.
Just that's where we start that.
Yeah, that's the starting
And he was
point.
like, yeah. And I was like, when we buy the race car, who's writing the check?
Sounds like a West Side Collection sponsor. Yeah, I see where this is going. Yeah.
I wrote this down.
Do you have a list of things?
Yeah, I just if we're gonna do long radio, and I can't go fucking unprepared. What do you think?
I wrote a few things down.
Did you?
Yeah. Go for your list.
Well, what do you think that, like, okay, things are sort of moving away from long form to short form. You live? All right. Sorry about that, kids. Zach had to go do a thing, and we'll check in with him later. Let's now that we were slightly thrown off kilter, let's go to the Patreon because it's very important. First things first, Scotto, pass me that pen that's sitting on my notebook. Our new Patreon collab is coming Tuesday, the 19th. That's tomorrow if you're live, or today if you're listening to the recorded the day it comes up. Tactile turn pens. I love these things. This is our new collab, Scotto.
I'm a big pen guy.
Dude, these are cool. These are sweet. Titanium and aluminum.
What would you call this? Like
it's ribbed.
It is definitely ribbed for your pleasure.
Ribbed for your pleasure.
It is definitely ribbed for your pleasure. I like the action on it though. It's kind of nice.
That bolt action thing is great. So Patreon, patrons only, exclusive collab just for you guys. And you can get it on the link is on the Patreon Tuesday morning. And of course, if you're a patron at patreon.com/the Smoking Tire Podcast, you can get the show early. You can ask us questions. You can watch the live stream. You can get an extra show every month. You can get exclusive access to collabs like this and others. And we're going to go to some of your questions now. We have probably a lot. Yep.
Let's go through.
Oh, we have a lot. Let's see. Let's just start at the beginning here. Jeremy says, is the end of Motor Trend TV shows and the restructuring or whatever of Warner Brothers Discovery an indicator that TV as we know it is dying or dead? Is it just the first of many to fail?
Can I answer this?
Yes.
Hollywood is dead.
Yeah, Hollywood's fucked.
And Hollywood is dead, and then that is a trickle down of all other things being in a bad place, because I think everything aspires to be Hollywood, which was probably a mistake. It's funny because the motor trend, very similar to the Hoonigan bankruptcy, Hoonigan ended up getting swept up in a much bigger company's issues.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like Hoonigan.
It wasn't like Hoonigan
didn't lose $1.2 billion. I wish.
It would have been
a lot of fun.
If you lost a $1.2 billion.
We would have had to burn a town down.
It would have been fun. Right there, yeah.
But I think, the same situation you have here where Motor Trend is just caught up in the Warner Brothers issue that they're dealing with, and they're just going through and hacking whatever makes sense. I mean, the conversation for this was probably a bunch of people in a room who didn't even know what roadkill was.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just the unfortunate of how things like that get lost in huge companies. I guess it's like, to me, like, TV already feels dead. And I think streaming is sort of became the new TV, but I also think streaming is dead. Which, like, I don't think anyone wants to admit yet, but I think that we move through this.
You don't know how many people are watching it.
It's not even how many people are watching. It's the quality of content. Like,
are you saying that Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson wasn't the pinnacle of sports entertainment?
No, but Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is a perfect example of not really knowing what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like it took Jake Paul to pull an internet level stunt to shut down the Netflix servers. But then in the end, but this is the algorithm problem.
Right.
In the end, the content wasn't good.
In the end, it wasn't good.
It wasn't a good fight. It wasn't worth watching.
Not only was it not a good fight for fighting's sake, like the commentating wasn't good, like the quality of the product was particularly bad, noticeably bad. Yeah.
And I think that's where that goes to, which is the expectation that things need to do. I couldn't even imagine how many tens of millions had to tune in to do that to their servers, right, and figure that out. But I also
Someone
think
said 60 million. I read 60
that sounds
million
about right.
people.
That sounds about right. But, you look at, like, the height for me of good programming was The Sopranos.
Sure.
Kicked off, right? The Sopranos, The Wire, like, those shows kicked it off.
Early HBO.
And it went to, like, Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead before season 5 or whatever, like the Mad Men, right? Like there was this era that wasn't really streaming, but it was streaming supported. Like you were either watching it on TV or you're watching wherever, Game of Thrones, all those kind of things was this era. And then Netflix obviously had plenty. I mean, Ozark is a fantastic show, right? You had this era of where that was all delivering really well, and then it just became just like YouTube. It became a game of quantity over quality. And I think at first we were so excited about
nuts. They're doing things that could be like a 90-minute documentary, and it's 5 50-minute episodes, and it's just full of fluff and shit.
Yeah, and I think that in general, I think that's one side of it. The other side of it is we moved into this model of the $400 million film in the Hollywood side, and because that's the type of money you need for capital, like, for venture capitalists to get their money back and investing in a way that matters. Like the $10 million film or the $1 million film, like the movie Swingers, like that stuff just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that may save TV right now, and I'm going to give away my sauce here, but I think the one thing that may save is
me.
No, is the world of the indie show that lives on Netflix. I think Netflix and all of them have also become too algorithmic to sit there and say, if this show doesn't do this many views in the first 3 episodes, it's not getting another season, right? And it's all built like that. Nothing is given time to breathe anymore and get good. Top Gear. Season 1, 2, and 3 were not good.
Yeah, but it was just
and then it
BBC's default car show. And sorry if it's awkward that I'm sitting in Zach's seat.
No, it's fine. I'm only turning around to look at the names.
It's just a weird. I needed a way to read the questions.
Well, and I think Top Gear is a perfect example. Like, why was Top Gear so good for so long? Was because it checked all the boxes that I was talking about before in a way that you don't think about. Like, it was a government-funded show by the people that wasn't controlled by anything.
Yeah.
They could shit all over a manufacturer and not hear the repercussions from it. There was no advertising on BBC that was going to get mad about what they said about the new Porsche or whatever.
Yeah.
They could do it. They weren't depending on an algorithm because it was just on broadcast. Yeah. And they were basically allowed to do whatever they wanted.
No algorithm and no advertisers. I mean, what a luxury.
People have asked me, like, oh, could you make a new Top Gear, like, next generation Top Gear? I'm like, I just don't. Unless it was to go make it for the BBC where you had that same ability. But even now, I think the BBC is too afraid of making things that are upsetting people. I just don't think it's possible
You
anymore.
would need the same conditions to exist that created the first Top Gear, which those conditions do not exist right
anymore.
now. Yeah.
No. And matching their chemistry is
right. Well,
it's
a whole other problem. Dustin Bateman says, how do you feel your directorial skills have evolved over the years? Do you think you could direct a feature film?
First off, Dustin Bateman literally, like, if not customer number one at Hoonigan, he's definitely in the top 100 customers.
I was customer number one.
You were customer one at the store.
At the store.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring the dollar with me today to take a photo, and I forgot. But he, like, when we started selling stickers, he was like one of the early guys and has stuck through and was also like one of the first people to sign up on my Patreon. So
okay.
Like, cool dude.
Shout out to Dustin.
But how do I think they've changed? I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. I was a magazine guy who showed up to be like, yeah, I guess I can be a filmmaker. And it was guys like Ben Conrad, who was directing with Logan at the time. He's actually the guy that went on to start Donut. Those guys helped me kind of become that. So I would say the number one thing that's changed is confidence. Like, I don't second guess myself as much. Like, I kind of know what I need and what I want. And I think the other thing is I've learned to trust other people. Like, in the beginning, I felt like I had to, like, double check everything and, like, look it through everyone's lens and just not trust that people were going to do something. And I realized that instead what I needed to do was to develop trust with people so that they could do the job I needed them to do instead of, like, micromanage them. And, like, it's really difficult for me to do that. Like, I'm a very kind of controlling person. Yeah. And then I also think you get enough. This is, like, a weird thing to say, and I try to say this as humbly as possible, but, like, you have enough successes that you become a little less afraid to fail. Yeah. Right? Like your first few times, you're like, this is my one chance up at bat. Yeah, and if I don't hit the ball, they might not ever ask me to be up at bat ever again. Right? You're very imposter syndrome. You get a couple in, you're like, okay, I'm willing to try something different this time. Yeah. Because if this one doesn't do well, you might only be remembered by your last trick, but I got a lot of other things I've done. You kind of build that. So that would be one, and just learning from the other people around me was a big one for me. So that Derek's question. Derek has like a 7-part question, but it boils down to: do you have any tips for improving your creative eye when it comes to photography or cinematography beyond just practicing more? Work with good people and watch what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, seat time is a big part of it. The other one for me was I didn't really watch a lot of our competitors, meaning I've only watched 2 episodes of Donut my whole life. One of them was because I was on it. And then the other one was because someone was like, you need to watch this episode. And it wasn't because I didn't, respect or appreciate what those guys did. It was that I wanted to not be tainted by the other stuff people were doing in my space. I used to do that too. Not want to watch because of that. Yeah. I've switched. I've started watching a lot of stuff this past year because also I'm out of the industry. I'm not doing it as much. And it's kind of interesting to see where people are today. But in the early days when we were pioneering it, I think it was looking at stuff that felt adjacent to my space, but like done in a different way. Like, I will be honest, there were makeup vloggers who influenced the way we did things at Hoonigan. Like, I was just looking at things that were successful, that were doing well, or had a particular look. Casey Neistat was a huge influence on us early on. Do you know Casey Neistat? I know who he is. I've never met him. Yeah, but I never met him either. But like his content and what he was doing and the way he was going about doing it was huge. So I think the same thing goes for like, especially for automotive photography. I have a basic rule, which is like, if you remove the cars, it's still a good photo. Yeah. Okay. Right? Like, like, is it still a good photo if you remove the car? And I think that that's really important sometimes. Not every shot, but sometimes, like, if you watch a Gymkhana and you pluck the car out, you're like, that's still a pretty photo. Yeah. Like, it's not Ansel Adams. but
it's visually nice.
like, do the lines line up? And I think a lot of times people get so caught about the car that they forget that like the whole scene tells the story. And that is the other one for me. Does the shot tell a story? And if it doesn't, then it's just pretty. Like the shot has to help tell the story. And I think when you start thinking about it that way versus thinking about it as like, does it follow this rule of thirds? And like there's all these like things you can learn about cinematography. But for me, I just like the story. Like move the camera a little to the left because I want to catch a little bit of that what that sign says. Because even if your eyes don't notice it immediately, like maybe it reads, it'll read differently.
A slightly richer frame kind of thing.
What do you got next?
JDM Fanboy, top 3 cars you own that have the least likely chance of getting built.
This is a true follower of mine. Like, this is disciple level. Yeah. Favorite 3 cars that'll probably never run. I don't know if to feel complimented or insulted in that comment.
What are your 3 favorite non-running cars right now?
I have a 1985 or 86, I'm not sure, Synchro Quantum Wagon.
Okay.
And I have this like dream of building it into
it's
like
$100,000 to make that car worth $9,000.
Exactly. So that's one. I hate to say this, but like my Toyota Corolla I was mentioning before with the VR6, like there's a lot of work to get that thing finished and to get it there. But that's probably another one in my head. And then I have this other. I have an F600. Ford F600,
like a
1975 Ford F600 crew cab that has been put on a different chassis. I bought it from a friend. It sits like that now. And I also have an engine. I'm not going to give away too much, but I have a famous engine from a Hoonigan car that I ended up somehow, like the weird things you get in a divorce, like I somehow have this. I never wanted it, but now that I have it, I might as well put that engine into this F600.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where in my head, I'm like, oh, I could build that in a weekend. And then like I go and look at other people who build these cars and they're like, yeah, it took me like 7 years to build this thing. I'm like, oh. So I don't know. That's probably my list. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Lemonhead, assuming no maintenance needed, what's the cheapest way to get the V12 experience in a car? V12 experience is in quotation.
No maintenance. I mean, that's obviously an 8 Series.
Assuming we live in fantasy land, yeah.
What would it be for you?
I mean, yeah, to get the V12, because like you could buy a Mercedes old S600.
Yeah, that's probably
you could buy an old Jaguar like XJ12.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you can buy an E-Type with a.
True.
Yeah, with a V12.
But if you want literally the cheapest, you can buy cheap cars with V12s in them, but they won't give you the V12 experience you're probably looking for, right? Like I would say the cheapest way to really get a V12 experience will be like Aston DB7.
Oh, that's a good one.
Is a pretty good one. I mean, maybe you could do a Mercedes 600 if you put like that Zonda exhaust on it, which would sound terrible.
What about the maintenance? The problem, the minute you said no maintenance needed.
No maintenance is like...
It's just, and then the word cheap. This is like the old, dude, you can have it good, you can have it fast, or you can have it cheap, but you can only have 2.
Yeah, like you could probably get, there's downstairs in the underground level of West Side Collector Car Storage, Playa Vista right now, I have an Espada that hasn't run for 30 years. So like...
Is it yours?
No,
like,
it's a
customer's.
For sale? No, it's a customer.
Good.
She inherited it, and so it hasn't run. It's a project for Aaron Robinson says that if I can get it to a lift, he could get it running in a weekend.
I believe that from him.
And that's probably true.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's such an ugly, beautiful car.
Oh, they're
weird.
Such
a weird shape.
Oh, they're funky as hell. But you get them one that doesn't have the big bumpers.
Yeah.
They're cool. The right wheels. Yeah. They look fucking rad.
They actually look like a Volkswagen Quantum Coupe, but that's a whole other story.
Kind of. Same family.
Yeah. Well, here's a question on that though: well, I guess it's not technically a V; it's a W. But like, am I crazy to think that the Continental GT? Because that's a W12.
It's a W12,
right?
Yeah.
Right? Is a V12 experience.
I don't think it's the one that people are really looking for.
Because it's a W.
It's
basically 2 VR6s.
It doesn't sound like a V12. It doesn't rev
those
like
are incredibly cheap right now.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
can
it
buy
doesn't
one
mean
for,
they're
like,
bad cars.
You can get one with 60,000 miles on it for 18 grand.
Yeah,
which is absurd.
Yeah, and here's what it needs.
Everything.
It needs a $30,000 set of ceramic brakes, a full air suspension rebuild,
And the dash removed to change a fuse because Audi built it.
I fucking love Bentley GTs. So that Arizona trip, I was just driving the new one. It's unbelievable, but I would not want one used. That used. We have, Hannah drives a 91 Bentley.
Oh, yeah.
A 6 3/4, and it's awesome. But that's a different thing. Meh says, are there any mods someone can do to their car that would make you more likely to buy their car than if it was stock? Conversely, what mods would make you walk away? So if I saw a car that had a certain set of mods, would I be more likely to buy it than if it was just stock?
A really good set of wheels.
Could help.
And like a basic suspension. Like if you went to go look at, let's even talk about like a 911.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I went to go look at 911 and it's got a ton of mods on it, I don't want it.
Right.
But if it had like a set of KW coilovers and whatever, a set of speed lines on it, it's pretty good. Mainly because the wheels would probably be worth more if they sold them separate from the car, right? And also, it makes it look nicer on day one.
Yeah.
Nothing's worse than being a guy who works in the car world and then buying a car that's like not modded at all and having to like show up somewhere and be
That
like,
first
"Why are
day.
you not? Why? Yeah, like the first day, like cool, lower it,
Where's
bro.
your wheels, bro? Yeah.
That's probably it. But anything more than like, I am now the kind of person who wants to find a car that no one's ever touched.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem with being someone who modifies cars is that the person who wants to mod it and the person who wants to keep it stock are looking for the same car.
Yeah.
I would buy, if it was a mid 2000s BMW and it had like a dine-in package.
But that's I think that's
Brand name
stretching the modding part.
Okay,
Because
brand
to
name
me that's
tuner
just
package.
a dine-in car.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's certain
It
things
was a
there.
Scirocco with a Callaway turbo.
That I'd buy. That I'd buy. That's actually another good one. If it's a mod that was super period correct and rare,
Right.
and knowing that it's all in the car makes it complete, definitely that. There was a Callaway turbo GTI that sold for like $50,000 on Brand Trailer.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that
was a really nice
That was
one.
really nice.
Yeah, find another one.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck.
Exactly.
Mr. Miyagi said, Scotto, are you still in touch with Dr. Reuven since he moved to Lamborghini?
I have spoken to him since he went to Lamborghini, but I haven't spoken to him much in the past year. He actually has a Schrick valve cover of mine for an 8-valve. Like, this is a valve cover that doesn't even go. I mean, I guess I could put on my Swallowtail, but like, it's a valve cover I have to build an engine for. That's like my level of depravity at this point.
You have one part and you have to build the entire engine
I should
around
text
that.
him now so I remember, but I haven't spoken to him much in the past year. But Dr. Crazy, as he's known, Reuven. Do you know Reuven?
No.
Oh, really?
No idea who that is.
He was at Audi and then was like a test driver / engineer. I don't really even know what his job is. And now he's like, I think he's like C-suite at Lambo now or something.
Cool.
Yeah, like technology or something like that.
Good for him.
So,
I hope Matt likes my username. My sports car experience begins and ends with a Miata. What car should I Turo for a weekend to expand my horizons that contrasts a Miata experience?
if you were short enough to fit in a Miata, it's probably the best experience. Bang for the buck. I don't fit in one.
But if you want to expand your horizons, I would find a Hellcat, a 911, or a 60s muscle car.
Definitely a 60s muscle car. If
Yeah.
you can. That's like a whole different
If you go
experience.
from Miata to Hellcat.
I don't recommend anyone go drive a 911 because I feel like the driving of a 911 is so superior that then you have the 911 bug and then you live in a world of cars you can't afford. Like that's just like my take on that. But a Miata is like pretty good. And I'm not a Miata boy because I don't fit in them.
Yeah, but you get it.
But I get it.
Yeah.
Like I get it. I totally understand like what makes them good. But the muscle car one is pretty good. A good slot, like a car that like has like a lot of tank slap in it when you have to correct it. There's something fun there.
Real sloppy steering. Chef Neil, you have $20,000 a year, which is like $1,600 a month. $1,500 a month to spend on a Doordash car. So a car you're delivering food in a couple nights a week, never goes over 40 miles an hour, needs to be engaging, manual transmission.
Got it.
Yeah, what do you got?
Toyota Previa. Manual transmission,
Manual
Toyota
Previa.
Previa with a supercharger. Go.
Yeah,
because here's
wow.
the thing: if you pull up with too fancy of a car at Doordash, I'm not giving you a good tip.
Oh, for sure.
So you're rolling an old Previa. If you know, you know. But if you roll up in a Previa, slammed on some Volks, and I see it, you're getting a tip and a high five.
A huge tip, yeah.
Yeah.
$20K a year, too. You could buy Previas and just throw them away when they're done.
Or you could have the most batshit 2J Previa.
I mean, you'd have to go Hachi. I'd have to go with a Hachi.
Oh, just because it's the ultimate delivery
It's
vehicle?
the ultimate delivery vehicle. How do you not have a fucking Hachi? The black top.
Here's another good one. Audi S8 D2, because you're the transporter.
Oh, God, they're so good.
Like if you had, like
I saw you bought one.
I have one. Yeah.
Does it work?
Yeah, it works. I was going to drive it up here today, but
Is it good?
It's 2002 good.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to manual swap it.
Are you? Can you?
Yeah, in Europe they came manual, so I bought an entire manual swap from Europe.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's OEM swap.
Does it basically feel like the S4 when you do that?
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same
I don't know. I haven't
gearbox,
driven
right?
one yet, but the gearbox in it is the letdown. Because you realize, like, it's the 4.2 V8. It's the engine that Clarkson said is one of the greatest engines of all time.
Yeah.
It revs to like $8,000.
Yeah.
The thing's fantastic, but the torque converter is like,
Yeah, it sucks.
Like
And
it
it's
just
like a
doesn't
4-speed
rev.
maybe or 5-speed.
And it's pre-intelligent automatic. So
Right.
it's like it's good old-fashioned slushbach auto.
Yeah.
So I'm going to manual swap that. It was my Ronin was like such an influential movie for me. So like I loved that car as a kid. So that is a great delivery vehicle though, because that is what the Transporter was. Although it might have been a D3, but I don't remember.
I was working at a Porsche Audi dealer when those cars came out. And driving them around, I mean, they were brand new, rolling off the truck, brand new. They were some of the best driving cars I'd ever driven.
Great,
to
because
that
they
point.
drive small despite the size of them. I mean, you look at them, and because they look like an A4, you don't really realize the size of them, and then you park it next to something like my RS2, and you're like, oh yeah, this thing is kind of massive.
And all the S8s were short wheelbase, right? Because there was
S8
the L
was the short
also.
waves, and then they had the L, which was the longer wheelbase model. But the S8 has the 5-valve engine.
Yeah. When they were new, those things were the silver Avis wheels, suede headliner, sick.
Yeah, mine's black on black.
Yeah, that's all right. West Side Collector Cat Storage. Always shocked how in Gymkhana 7 your team was able to shut down large parts of downtown Los Angeles. What did that process look like? When I saw that shot that you guys did on the 110 freeway when you shut that shit down, I was like, that might be the greatest road closure for a YouTube video in history.
It was pretty amazing. By the way,
That was a Michael Bay level road closure.
You want to feel old? Yesterday was the 10-year anniversary
of that video?
Of that video coming out.
No way.
10 years. 10 years of the introduction of the Unicorn, all of that. That part was, at that point we had already shut down San Francisco, so I went from I can't believe we're doing this to I can't believe you won't let me shut this down. Like I shut down a bridge. What do you mean I can't shut this down? But it was still, I actually have this one photo of me and Ken that I've been meaning to post of us, like me grabbing a selfie with him. We weren't really like selfie guys, like that wasn't our thing. Like to be like, oh, let me like pop a selfie. One, we were always around professional photographers. So we just had professional photographers taking photos of us together. And I don't know, like I'm in my fucking 40s. Like even then, I was like, my generation was not as much to like, let's pop a selfie together. But we popped the selfie together on that road because it was. I knew at the moment how just amazing it was that we were able to do that and how iconic that moment of the 110, 105 interchange was. And at that point, I'd only been living in Cali for a couple of years. I didn't even realize the extent of traffic and mayhem we had created by doing that.
Yeah, it was probably, what did that permit cost?
The permit's not a lot. It's the police that cost a lot.
Yeah.
The permit's just the regular filing. It's everything else that comes with it because they're like, oh, you're going to need
100
27 officers and cars to deal with this, and you have to pay them by the hour.
So that shit adds up.
Yeah.
But when you're hiring the cops, boy, do they love to tell you shit they shouldn't be telling you.
Yo.
Fucking the homies when you're paying them that much by the hour.
They're also like the number one person to do a burnout. Like you know what? You know how much coaxing it takes to get a cop to do a cop car and a burnout? I'll tell you how much coaxing. I won't show the number on the side of the car. Just in it. And it's like not only are they in it, but it's the perfect amount of brake versus throttle pressure, which means they've done it before.
Yeah.
Like they know exactly what it takes to smoke a cruiser.
They know every inch of that V6 Charger, dude. We once shut down the 74 in Palm Springs, that beautiful road that goes to do with a tuner car shootout. And fucking, I had BBIs that GT2 with the sequential gearbox. Is that Project Swan, maybe?
Yeah, Project Swan. Yeah.
And I fucking lit that thing up so hard up that road. The cop came back down and he goes, dude, what is in that car? And I go, I don't know, you want to find out? And he goes, yeah. And he got in the car, and I probably did 150 in a 35 with a cop in the car going, fuck yeah, bro. It was fucking crazy. Sorry, what?
I was going to say, we shut down Piuma Canyon once, and that was a great road. And the cops were the same way. They were just like, yeah, man, just have at it.
What did you do that for?
RS 200 video with Ken for Ford.
Oh, wow.
You know, which was really cool. So
yeah.
I also had a cop once shut down the FDR drive for me when I had the Ford GT before, like 2000. It's like 2005. Like it is not out yet. And we were sitting in traffic, just doing like quick little launches. And the cop pulls up behind me with the lights on. And I was like, oh, shit. You know, I was just smoking the tires for a second.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold on a second. He's like, is that the new Ford GT? And I'm like on the, like, you know, New York City cop, like on,
on the loud.
He's like, hold on a second. And he just starts going back and forth.
Oh, he does. He made you a gap?
Yeah, it makes me a gap. Right. And then he's like, let's run it. Let's run it. And he was like behind me with the lights on. And I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Roth V wants a daily driver, 400 horsepower, under 75,000, no manual gearboxes, good handling, and comfortable seats. Preferably a two-door coupe or a cab. 75 grand, daily driver, 400 horsepower. I mean, comfortable seats, good. These are pretty reasonable requests, right?
This is really reasonable. This is like too reasonable for me.
So it's not a two-door coupe, but if you want a brand new car, I'm going to go Audi RS3. The new RS3 is a fantastic car. It's a nice choice.
And the drift mode,
it works.
Really works, and it's a lot of fun.
It does.
I smoked a set of tires on one. It was really good.
Yeah, the new one's great.
Yeah, I've got your full support there. And if you want to be an absolute shithead, that thing will make 1,500 horsepower.
If you go to Iron's,
if you go to Hank Iron's, it'll make 1,500 horsepower.
Yeah, those cars are so fucking fast. That's what I would do. If you want, that's like literally. I think it's 72 out the door auto, and it's 400 horsepower. So it's got two extra doors, but I think you're good there.
The other thing is it's one of those if you know cars.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Blends.
It blends
you
really
just
nicely.
Fucking disappear in that car.
Yep.
Get it in a non-bright color.
Well, Hank said that his number one consumer for those cars are guys who own Lamborghinis.
Oh yeah,
because they own a really fast car, but they want something that they can drive to a business meeting, but still have 1,000 horsepower and smoke their friend's Ferrari when they're on the road with them. But they also want something that just looks like a normal car.
That was what Marcel from HPA told me. You know HPA in Canada, and I drove their twin turbo VR6.
Oh yeah, I think
fucking
it's a
Golf R, and it was 750 horsepower. Ran 9s. It was awesome.
I love that's my kind of car.
Yeah, and speaking of which, all-wheel drive bias says, Brian, are there motors better than the VR6, and which version of the VR6 is your favorite?
No, and obviously 3.2 24 valve. By the way, I don't actually think the VR6 is that incredible of a motor. I think there's obviously better motors, but just stating that for the fact.
Though.
But bang for the buck, they sound good, and they're kind of like I hate to say this, but like they're the Volkswagen LS.
Kind of.
Like you can throw a ton of power at them, iron block. Like you can build turbo cars that make 1,000 plus horsepower. And in the past 5 years, like people started to realize it. So now there's like really good support and technology behind it. Like it's one of those engines that when I was a kid and I was building them, if you could get to 500 horsepower, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Now it's like guys are doing billet block ones that make 2,000 horsepower, and they run on really good management.
2,000 horsepower on a front wheel drive Volkswagen.
No, people do it.
Not drivable.
Yeah. But no, I think it's a great sound. It's a great sounding, unique sounding engine. Like no one's ever like, what was that? Like if you know engines, you're like, oh yeah, that's a VR.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has that Wookiee noise to it.
Yeah. Ryan Morris says, just saw a video of a tuned Taycan 4S, that's the electric Porsche, making 640 horsepower. The GTS and Turbo make over 800. It's a physical ECU swap that can be done in a few minutes, apparently $5,000. What EVs would you like to see tuned next? I could not give less of a fuck about tuning EVs for more power.
Can I give another hot take? I think the Taycan is one of the better looking cars that Porsche has made in the past however many years.
I agree.
And I was ecstatic when I heard that they're considering putting an ICE engine in it. Did you hear that?
I don't know if
Or
they're
is that
going to
a
do
rumor?
it with Taycan. I think they may offer it with Macan. I don't think they can do it in the Taycan.
Oh, really? Because of the way they slope the nose?
Because of the way that it looks. But I think they hedged a little bit with the Macan, and they can make a gas one. I think. They can definitely, there's going to be gas and electric versions of the next Cayenne and the next Panamera.
I mean, I think that like the Taycan, I look at it and I'm just like, especially what is it, the Sport Turismo or whatever? It's a beautiful car.
Yeah,
but
there is. So I've driven all of them.
Are you anti-EV?
No.
But you just are like not.
No, it's not that I like EVs for the things that they're good at. I don't like EVs for as being sports cars typically.
Yeah.
And I've driven all the Taycans. Beyond the stock 4S, right, which is like 560 horsepower, which is so much. Beyond that, the faster ones don't like get you anything.
Right.
There's only so fucking fast you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
I've driven the Turbo and the GTS and the Taycan GT made me so physically ill.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what am I? And it's not like, we've talked about this so many times, but like, if you take out your, we'll use the example of Dodge Chargers. You're driving a V6 rental Dodge Charger. It has a frequency of how it sounds. It has a frequency of how it revs. It sounds a certain way. Okay, now you go to the V8, the Hemi. Okay, now it sounds different. It feels more powerful. Now you go to the Hellcat. Even in a traffic jam, you can tell the difference between those three.
Yeah.
They feel different all the time. A base Taycan and a Taycan GT are exactly the same until you get to the last 10% of the pedal, which even the base cars are so fast with so much instant torque, you're almost never doing.
Yeah.
So I don't give a fuck. I mean, thank you for sharing, Ryan. I'm happy happy this exists, but like I've never been in any EV ever where I went, you know what this needs?
More
power.
Yeah.
Never. Not a one.
You've driven the 5N.
I liked it.
That's like the right amount of power.
It's great.
It's
it has
really
a great
fun.
balance
it's fun to slide around.
of handling and power, and the synthetic gearbox lies to me convincingly.
Yeah.
But
it's one of the few times where I got to drive it at Laguna before the press launch. We went there to help them do some photography for it, so I drove it last December. Or
I was
whatever.
there with Vin and Ron. I was there the next day or whatever.
Yeah, and I hated that I liked the audio input.
Yeah.
But it made me understand the speed of the car going into a corner.
100%.
Because one of the problems I dislike about an EV, whether it's on a canyon road or on a track, is I have a hard time judging my speed. It's like playing a simulator with the volume off.
Yeah.
Like I'm going into a corner, I'm like, whoa, I'm carrying way too much speed. Where if I'm going into the corner and I'm like, man, like even if it's a fake noise, I'm like, man, that works.
You go,
for
this
me.
is a third gear corner, this is a fourth gear corner, this is a second gear corner.
Yep.
Frames of reference are
Frame
good.
of reference. I mean, that was a big thing that for Ken on Electricano.
Yes.
The first one, we didn't have a simulated gearbox. The second, we put a simulated gearbox in, and it was like a different car for him. Because otherwise, it's like there's just no understanding of reference of like, how fast am I going? How fast are the wheels spinning? I don't know.
It makes an enormous difference.
But at the same time, it's really cringy. Like to sit there and like pipe in fake audio noise into the car to get that experience. But it works.
It does work.
It works.
It's fake titties.
Yeah.
Lie to me.
Also work.
Yeah.
Also work. Good point.
Let's see. Alex Brown, best budget-friendly wheel brand, looking for under about $4,000 a set. You know anything about that? I buy really expensive wheels. I'm sorry to say.
I'll be honest. I'm a used wheel kind of guy. Like you could go and buy a nice set of wheels for $2,500 or $3,000, and then have them refinished and barreled to fit perfectly on your car.
Yeah.
And that's like almost a better spend. But I guess it depends on how new your car is and what you're looking for that you want out of it. You know, it's a cool wheel company. Augmented Wheels. Have you seen them?
I don't know.
They basically take like old classic wheel designs and then like build better sizing and better fitments for them.
That's pretty
cool.
cool.
Like phone dials and like things like that. Like they make a 17-inch phone dial, which is like if you have a 944 and you want to keep it on, like things like that.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. Josh, what's your take on the B7 Audi RS4?
Absolutely
I like those.
love it. And let's not talk about it because I don't want the prices to go back up. The prices jumped after COVID, like they all did, and then they stayed high for a little bit, and they've recently dropped. Like you can buy a sub $20,000 one now.
Really?
You can get like an 18 to 19 grand one for like 120,000 miles. That is a fantastic car,
especially as like a highway car.
It's a great highway car. When they launched the car in the U.S., we used it as the preview guide for 0 to 60. I put 7,500 miles on that car in 1 week. Drove it from L.A.
Did you tell them what you were doing?
We told them we were going to bring it. We told them we'd deliver it to the New York office.
7,500 miles.
We had to do an oil change because it was break-in oil. We had to do an oil change at a Jiffy Lube on the way. Because I called Alan. I don't know if you remember Alan. I'm blanking on his last name at the moment, but Alan Hall. Remember Alan Hall?
Yeah.
I had to call Alan and be like, "Hey man, like I'm getting all these lights on that like I need to like do a service. Can I bring it to Audi?" And then like we were like in the middle of like no Audi dealerships for 100 miles. So we brought like a Jiffy Lube. But anyway, I did it like we went from LA to Pikes Peak to Atlanta to then drive back to Chicago and then like loop all around to New York. So and then I did that with the sedan, and then the Avant I picked up we did a story Nürburgring to Le Mans comparing the two, and midway through the trip, it's like 2008, it was before I worked for Ken said, "Hey, I'm at he's like, I saw you in Europe," because I like posted something on like Facebook or whatever. He's like, "I saw you in Europe, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing this thing." He's like, "Hey, I'm at Colin McRae's house. He said if you want, you can come by."
And you told us this story.
I went and did that on the way.
Yeah.
So because of that, I've actually been shopping one right now. I've been shopping one because it's a great
really
car.
Like the convertible. Nobody likes the convertible. They're
I think
so
I think
rare.
I said this last time. The convertible is kind of cool. Like if
That's
you were to want a convertible,
car.
it's a really
That's
cool
an
car.
invisible car.
I'll tell you the weird swap I've been dreaming about is RS B7 RS4 with the V10 in it.
Oh. Well, that's
it came
probably
with the V8.
doable
It's
because you
definitely
did it
doable.
you did it in the S6, right?
You
basically get an entire S6 powertrain.
Yeah.
And put it in there.
You do that, or
Will it fit?
Or I mean probably but tight. Or the new 4-liter twin turbo V8, which is across multiple Audi, but like you could build that thing 800 horsepower all day. Because the one thing, if you drive a B7 RS4 today, it sounds great. It revs to 8,500. It is a fantastic driver. It has amazing steering. The steering feels really good on the car.
No torque.
But it's just a little slower compared to what you expect out of that type of car today.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But they're so nice.
Yeah.
Here from Matt's Cats, is it nuts to intentionally buy an unreliable car with the intention of learning and growing as a shade tree mechanic? Something like a used 7 Series that can be had cheap and is notorious for issues.
All right, 2 parts.
I like where your head's at, but I don't. I think you've taken a wild left turn.
Everything you're saying is right. Everything you're saying is right. Honda Civic, maybe a Volkswagen Golf, something pre-OBD
95 or earlier,
where it's still a lot easier to work on.
Yeah.
The minute you went 7 Series was like, I don't know how to swim, but I'm going to get dropped in the middle of the East River and try to make it to Roosevelt Island. That's a lot.
Yeah.
7 Series is a lot. You should do it. You should definitely do it.
So much electronics. Like that's the problem with those. You're talking about a luxury sedan with gadgets and shit in it.
Well, this is the problem with my D2 S8 is that the biggest issue is all the electronic issues. I have like a bunch of like my engine temp light will go on even though my car is not hot.
Yeah.
And I've replaced all the sensors, but it could be because it's original CAN bus. It could be because my hazard light is out. Like you just don't know with those cars.
Yeah.
It's like too much pioneering in those cars for automakers that they're doing everything for the first time, and they built it for an audience that was going to sell the car in 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
Like they knew that
that's every car from that period.
It's lease era.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, the biodegradable Mercedes wires say hello.
The mouse the mouse fetching soy material.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, here's one. Chris says, I stumbled upon a 95 JDM 2-door RAV4.
Yes.
And I'm considering buying it to replace my crew cab Tacoma. I have a 40-mile round-trip commute and have your typical Pacific Northwest hobbies. don't care about right-hand drive. I know where to get parts, and I have a local shop to work on it. Am I missing something, or should I buy
First
this?
off, typical Pacific Northwest hobbies. Go.
Hiking, smoking weed,
Kayaking.
drinking
biking.
craft beer, smoking more weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flannels.
Skiing.
Eating
fish.
Eating fish. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Talking about farms and how the food gets to the table. What are other? Okay, anyway, I just wanted to kind of understand what we were doing. Yeah. Okay, got it.
So, I mean, look, we have
Hunting, but only like elk.
vegan hunting.
Like, I don't normally hunt, but when I do, I kill a massive animal, and then I eat the whole thing for a year and a half. Okay, so now that we got that figured out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think the RAV4's perfect.
Can I just say that I saw in Arizona last week a 90s two-door soft top RAV4 cruising down the highway on rims with the soft top actually down. And I was like,
That's pretty cool.
in a Bentley, and I'm kind of jealous of that guy.
Nothing is better than driving a really fancy car and taking photo of a shitbox.
Do you know that?
I love that because one,
Someone stole that from me, and it was a meme. And it went everywhere.
Right.
It's me from a Ferrari press car.
Yeah.
And I posted this on Instagram, and I took a picture of like a wagon, like a wood-sided Caprice.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was like I wrote like
bubble
I am
Caprice. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm the guy in the $400,000 Ferrari taking a picture of this old wagon, and someone screenshotted it from my Instagram. And absent the context of it's Matt Farah driving a press car.
Right.
And it gets stolen and shared around like twice a year.
It's better. It's better without the context because it's better to think that was the owner.
It is, but I was like, you fucking stole this and provided no context, you fucking assholes. But yeah, but you're right. It is the best.
Have you been in Steph's RAV4?
No, but I've seen it a lot, and it seems awesome.
He took me off road in it.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's like it's so simple and it just works. It's pretty great.
I'm taking that. I have downstairs in the underground level right now. I have the electric G-Wagon that I'm going to take off-roading on Friday.
That's the one that does the
donuts thing, the tank turns.
Tank turn. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And based on the tires, this one's been off-roading a few times.
It's got that full press treatment level.
Yeah.
To it, so.
Let's see. By the way, it is now 3 hours and 2 minutes of podcasting.
Have we
this is a
broken
record.
it?
The record is 249.
This feels easy.
It is easy when you're
easy.
friends.
Yeah, it's
249
easy.
is the record.
I mean, we lost Zach and we're still going. If Zach was here, we'd go to 5 hours. We'd go to 5 hours because he hasn't even started asking questions yet.
Yeah.
Maybe he can text them in.
Okay, Chris says the Bugatti Tourbillon is, in my opinion, the coolest car name. What other cool car names come to mind? And what would you name a supercar if you were head of marketing at a car manufacturer?
Mitsubishi Starion. It's the coolest car name.
Oh, it is.
And
I don't know the story of it.
Is it true?
Yes.
It is true.
Yes.
Because it's a little racist.
If it sounds racist, it's because
probably
it is.
True.
It's because
it
is
was
incredibly
supposed to be
racist.
called the Stallion to match the Mustang because it was a Mustang competitor.
I can't possibly beat Starion. You
it's
came up
amazing.
with that so fast. And what is the worst name of a supercar is, of course, the Ferrari LaFerrari. Which is, you cannot believe that such a talented company came up with that trash. And
But do you think?
See,
or was that a bet? It was like a bunch of guys sitting around, drinking, what's that lemon drink?
Mr. Agnelli, do you really think they will buy anything we sell them? Anything at all? Yes.
Yes. Is there a special allocation for it? Yes. Call it Ferrari
The Ferrari.
Yeah.
Bad Gardener says, once a month or so, I drive 500 miles in a round trip in a weekend to coach. Presumably that means kids' sports. What car would be good for the trip and have baller presence when I show up for $30K or less?
Toyota Previa.
For sure.
No, $30K or less. I give you a good
Bentley
one.
Turbo R.
Well, D4 Audi A8L.
Is that the outgoing one?
No, I think they're like D6 now. But it looks so similar to the new one that you don't realize that it's a 2015 or whatever.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
But it's still sort of, if you can get one sub 100,000 miles, you can get it with the 4-liter twin turbo. So it's a highway monster. You can get the TDI as well. You can get it as a highway monster. And most people just see, and get it in black, most people just see big Audi sedan, looks baller. But the L means you got plenty of room in the back for kids, bags, and if you have small kids, they can't kick your seat.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for a road trip. That I love, and for a driver,
500 miles.
You can crush miles with that thing.
500 miles, you might want the diesel.
If you need the pocketbook side on it. But I will also say, during the pandemic, I went from San Diego to LA in an hour in that car. It's pretty amazing. Full Autobahn level.
Oh, dude, I just had a new post-pandemic high score. I got from my front door, which is right over here, to Scottsdale. Okay, it was 382 miles, and I did it in under 5.
That's really good.
It was moving, but I left my house at 5:30.
Perfect timing.
5:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
left my house. I was gone.
Yeah,
and Bentley GT.
Yeah,
26 miles a gallon.
The other thing,
26.
The other thing I'll say about the Audi, for some reason, cops don't want to pull it over. They just look at you and go, you have a lawyer. You'll get out of the ticket. You'll make me show up to court. And you'll make me show up to court and explain I know how to use this machine. I'm good.
Yo, by the way, shout out to Off the Record, one of our biggest sponsors here on the Smoking Tire, my buddy Chris. Shout out to him. You know Big Chris down in Texas? He's on Team Richard Rawlings. British Chris.
I don't
actually. It's like 6'6". Big dude.
And usually all his tall guys are on a WhatsApp, so I must know.
Right. Homie buys a fucking GT2 996. Home from buying it, he gets a whopper. he gets a biggin. And the cop comes up to the car and goes, first thing he says, is this a real GT2? So he's fucking knows.
Yeah.
He knows. And the ticket was deep in the triple digits. Chris called me like, bro, I am having a problem here. Off the record, dismissed. Full dismissal. And if I told you the number on the radar gun, you wouldn't fucking believe me. I mean, and it was...
And those are painful. Tony Harmer on Bull Run in 2006 got a 155 in Moab in Utah.
In that vet?
In the vet.
Yeah.
And I had just been behind the wheel and I had sustained 180 for over 3 minutes. Which, by the way, there's a really long time to be going that fast.
Yeah. But that was the 06 Bull Run. Yeah. That was the one where Rob and Noah had the Gotham 4 GT.
Yeah. And that was the year that Rollins didn't go. He showed up to go and then went and set the record instead to surprise everybody at the end. But he spent like 2 years dealing with that ticket. And the cop, by the way, was super cool. When the cop caught us, he was like, he thought we had killed someone. Like, he didn't understand why we were going that fast. And he was going the other direction. And the minute he popped the lights on, like, we weren't going to try to outrun him. We just pulled over, turned the car off, and put the keys on the hood. So he walked up and was just relieved that we didn't try to shoot him. And then apologized for ruining our vacation. He didn't really understand what I was trying to explain to him, that we were, like, working. And then said, I'm sorry, I would let you go, but I thought you guys were making a run for the border. I literally thought you killed someone.
I've already called this
I called in air support. And literally, like, 10 minutes later, a helicopter comes flying over the top of us. And they arrested him, put him in jail. I had to go.
You had to bail him out?
I had to go bail him out, yeah. But then it happened right then and there, we got back in the car and got back on the road.
I never got any tickets that were written for a huge number on Bull Run. I got a lot of
talk them down.
Dude, I got so many fucking driving while stickered. Oh, people called in a whole bunch of cars.
You guys are racing.
Yeah, and I'm doing 67 and a 65.
Tony caught a great contest of speed at 75 miles an hour in a 70 or in a 65 in Michigan. Yeah. Because so many people called it in, and we weren't even with other people. We just had stickers on the car.
I went to jail in New York for alleged street racing, and I was absolutely not street racing. Me and a friend of mine were just going real fast up the West Side Highway. Yeah. But there's a big difference between going real fast and racing. Yeah, it was fucked up. I sat in jail. Didn't want to call my dad to bail me out. Ugh.
See that one.
You know how easy it was. Everyone had knives and weed in jail. I got searched. I don't know. All these fucking guys down there looking at fucking 3 strikes.
Prison purse, bro.
Fucking,
you weren't thinking.
A homie's asking me for a match to fucking light a joint. I'm like, we're in jail right now. Not only that, we're in the Tombs in New York, underground fluorescent light jail.
That you got to put in your prison purse.
No
man.
windows. You're just gonna light a fucking joint in a closed room? It's crazy. Last one, and then we will call this podcast, having now set an endurance record on this program. Tim A. Love you, Tim A. It feels absurd, but the new Carrera T is $150,000. What used Porsche would you buy new for Carrera T money? Now, hang on a second. I don't think this car, I'm just looking it up, is a starting price of we don't have the 992.2 price yet. Zach went on the launch. Oh, here we go. Coupe so the Carrera T Cabriolet starts at $149,000. The Carrera T Coupe starts at $136,000. Now, I'm not saying that. Can I fucking bring this up? I'm not saying that isn't a lot, but it is not quite 150. So the Coupe starts at 136. So, but anyway, back to Tim's question. New Carrera T's are in the neighborhood of $150,000. What used Porsche would you buy for Carrera T money?
I would either buy a nicely spec'd air-cooled, only because I don't, as sad as it is, I don't think the value is going to go down on them. I think everyone thought they were going to drop, and they just seem to kind of keep going back up. So I think that's a car you buy that you could drive for 5 years and sell for the same thing you bought, which is an amazing thing to be able to do.
There will not be any more of them. They're all the ones that ever will exist now.
Otherwise, I would say a really, really nice spec 997. I think the 997 is the greatest of the water-cooled. To me, the other ones that got bigger, I like the 997 feels like it's still connected to the lineage of the air-cooled. Like, everything else to me feels like it's a different car.
Sure.
Right?
I get that.
Like the car just feels, not saying it's a bad car, they're still great, but it feels like it's not the same car. You couldn't afford a GT3 at 150. Yeah. But a really good spec.
You could do a 997 GTS.
Yeah, that's
150 will get you a very good
get it in a great spec. Get it in a weird color with a weird interior, because that's going to be the car that'll be worth 200, 250 in a few years from now, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great choice. You might be able to get a 993 4S for $150,000. It will have miles on it, but it's possible. I mean, also my Spider, I love my Spider. It's the right size and it's big on the inside and small on the outside, and it looks great, and it does everything well, and so I recommend.
The other option would be, what was that, 150?
Yeah.
So like 20 944s. Yeah. That's always an option.
So a dozen 996
just run
Carreras.
an entire 944 racing series of your own. Yeah. So yeah, that would be it.
All right. Well, that is our 3-hour program. Make sure to come on, fucker. Oh, I was trying to put your shit up on the screen here, but it's not.
It's all right.
I don't know why it's not working. Let's try now. There we go. It's up on the screen. Brian Scotto on Instagram. Is your Patreon is in the bio
there, and also my YouTube, because I will start uploading to YouTube in like a couple weeks.
Great.
So I was gonna try to time it where I was gonna be able to announce today it's coming up tomorrow, but I'm not that organized.
It's okay. Yeah. This will go up tomorrow, Tuesday.
Awesome.
Thank you to all of our patrons. Of course, patreon.com/the Smoking Tire Podcast is where you do all of those things. Ad-free, early access, live stream, the whole shit. And we've got our tactile turn pen collab. We've got the titanium, which this is. We've also got an aluminum if you don't want to spend this much money, but you still want a good lightweight lifetime guarantee pen made in America. Patrons only. I will post the link on the Patreon if there's any left, because we made 100 of them. If there's any left at the end, we'll sell them to the public. But Scotto, New record, Habibi.
Yep. Johnny Lieberman, suck it.
Suck it, Johnny.
Record's mine. And if you want to come back for it, I'm just getting started.
And we didn't even open the pretzel nuggets. I'm proud of myself.
No, we barely even tapped into
yeah,
this.
Thank you for bringing the snacks.
One Arizona green tea and 2 Red Bulls got me
That's
through
it.
this.
That's it. Fuck yeah, dude. Well, always good to see you.
Definitely.
Tell
Good
Ashley
catch
I
up.
said hello.
Will do.
And I can't wait to see what you end up doing with your Patreon. I will join your Patreon today.
Now I feel like it's a pity to join, but I'll still take your $6.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it.
I got 6 on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Or I'll make you a free member by giving me some storage. I got 27 cars
That
to figure
costs
out where
more
to
than
go.
$6. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.